Chapter 4:28. After leaving quietly, Chen-ong calculated for a moment and deduced the mysteries of heaven along the way. It turned out that this was also the fate of karma. Because Chen-ong accepted the 3 disciples of the 3 elites of Chilu, and because they caused trouble for the temple of Dara, it was inevitable that there would be some danger. If Chen-ong stayed in the Shixia temple, the mysteries of heaven would naturally warn him, and he could calculate slowly. Anyway, the 3 of them were not in danger of dying. Only Yang Da's fate was not good, and it was inevitable that there would be some danger. But since Chen-ong went down the mountain and came to Yingtian, he was drawn into the fate of the temple of Dara and was appointed by fate to be the tribulation taker of the temple of Dara, so he should send all the people of the temple to Samsara. And that strange person, Ching-er, was also the evil star in the fate of the temple of Dara, which was why the 2 met. The mystery of the fate of this world could be seen from this world. The way of heaven was not benevolent and treated all things as dogs. It should have treated Taoists and demons equally, but the true masters of the mystic door had long understood the will of heaven, and linked the Tao fruit of the mystic door with the rise and fall of this world, and set up a heavy net for the way of heaven to maintain the reproduction and wonder of all things in this world. The excluded demonic sect and evil path would not have the chance to harm the world. According to Chen-ang's calculation, only after a few hundred years, when the way of humanity flourished and heaven and man offended each other, would there be chaos of karma, collapse of the net of law, and from then on the mysteries of heaven could no longer be calculated, and there would be no retribution for good and evil, leading to the prosperity of the demonic sect and being feared by the way of humanity. Only then did the Emperor of Heaven step into Yingzhou Mountain, ignite the star fire, share the land, and kill all the evil spirits. The way of humanity revolutionized the world, and with the posture of the overlord of this world it flourished. Although it destroyed the wonderful life of this world, it was not like the Taoists who went against the way of heaven and was feared by the world. Instead, it violated the way of heaven and overthrew all the rules set by the righteous path. Even the spiritual fairy realm and the heaven realm could not interfere, and there were many human sages who blessed the way of humanity to create a glorious path. Open people's wisdom, industrial revolution, avenue of science, explore the world. How can the progress of humanity be limited by karma and virtue? Chen-ong smiled and said, "Who in the righteous path dares to obstruct the progress of humanity? No wonder those cultivators gradually abandon this world. After all, this is the world of all living beings, not a paradise for cultivators to raise their people." Of course, this was a gradual process. The Taoist cultivators giving way to the people of humanity was also a gradual move. The people of the righteous path also decided to launch a massacre. They wanted to clean up the side sects of the devil path that might disrupt the advancement of humanity. At the same time, they wanted to recruit the cultivators who had karma points from the side sections. He reckoned that the rise of Mauname was driven by them. They wanted to kill so that there wouldn't be 2 powerful demonic sects left behind, which would bring disaster to the world. Then he moved the entire cultivation world to the spiritual immortal realm. When the main deity survives until Mount Ame ascends, he can hide in the side sects of the devil path, while the way of celestial is in seclusion and humanity has yet to be perfected. He can take the opportunity to control this world and use it as resources, Chen-ong calculated. The heavenly mystery that was originally developed and confirmed in this world suddenly had the 2 intruders, Chen-ong and the main deity. In the future, the conflict between heaven and man had an unpredictable future. Nanjing was next to the Yangtze River, so the water vapor was more abundant than Shixia Mountain. Chen-ong could also relax a little and absorb the water vapor to increase the cultivation of the celestial river mana. Therefore, the people in the city felt strange. The weather was cloudy in the morning, but in the afternoon it was clear, and the sky was clear. After dusk, Chen-ong quietly cultivated until a skinny silhouette quietly touched the roof of his house and knocked on the tiles 3 times. Then, Chunong turned into a beam of light and rushed to the roof. He saw the old monkey, squatting there sneakily and scratching his ears and cheeks like a monkey. The old monkey saw him and his eyes brightened. He said to Chunong excitedly and anxiously, "I'll teach you a good show. Just follow me." Chunong didn't know what he was up to, but according to his character, although he was very playful, he wouldn't mess up the important things. Chunong wasn't afraid that he would delay the serious business of the two of them killing people tonight. As expected, the old monkey still brought him in the direction of Dara Temple. The two of them hid their conveyance light and arrived in the forest outside of Dara Temple in a breath. They hid their bodies and watched from midair. Below them were 3 silhouettes dressed in black. Chunong recognized his 3 disciples at first glance. There was an invisible bug on Li Ning's body. He scanned with his spiritual sense, and sure enough, there was another silhouette lying not far behind them. It was Wang Ming. The old monkey pointed excitedly at the 3 people below and said, "I was afraid that the thief who kowtowed to the temple would die without any background, so I lured the 3 heroes of Chilu and Chilu to get rid of evil in advance. Originally, the 3rd brother wanted to wear a white robe, but I teased him a few times. We'll hide here and secretly help them kill their way up. If the evil person shows up, we'll go out and kill him with our flying swords." The old monkey liked to tease people the most. When he said this, he danced with joy and was very excited. He even explained to Chunong, "I don't know where the 3 heroes of Chilu and Chilu came from, but their martial arts are very powerful. The 3 brothers all have the best martial arts in the world. It's a pity that they don't have enough experience, or else I would have suffered a loss. But when they fight, it's very exciting. It's more interesting than any spells or flying swords. The eldest brother has a unique hidden weapon. The 2nd brother's knife skills are unpredictable, and the 3rd brother's lightness skill is unparalleled. All 3 of them have a wonderful breathing technique. If I know who their master is, I'll steal their secret martial arts. Steal it! Hee hee." Chunong curled his lips and sneered, "I'm not talented. The 3 below are all my useless disciples." The old monkey was laughing halfway when he heard what he said. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence and laughed to bury the matter. "Ah ha ha! That brat behind you has been following your disciple for a long time. His abilities aren't good, but his magic is quite good. I clearly saw him casting a spell, but I just don't know how he followed behind your disciple." "Because he released the tracking bug." Chunong answered him in his mind. There are 3 main streams of spells in the human world in the Central Plains. The first is the Luofu sect, which takes in countless disciples and spreads their spells all over the world. Although the disciples of the Luofu sect are half cultivators and half Taoist spells in the human world, they are still orthodox. Among the 3 main streams, their abilities are the highest. The second is the Mao Shan Taoist priests. They mainly exorcise evil spirits and use spells such as illusions. They also have the ability to cast curses and refine corpses to harm people. Although most of their subordinates are decent people, they are also one of the main streams of heretical demons in the pugilistic world. The last one is the Maishinabi. They are a combination of the lowly spells in the human world and the witchcraft of Xiangxi since ancient times. Most of them are gods and sorcerers. Decent cultivators will not be interested in them. The old monkey frowned and said, "That kid's spells are very good, much better than those of the 3 sections. Even I can't see any clues, but he is still in the human world. Who is his inheritance?" Chunong wanted to say, "He is also my disciple." However, this kind of test subject was beneath his identity as a righteous master, so it was not appropriate for him to say it. Coincidentally, the 3 of them had climbed over the walls of Dara Temple and attracted the attention of the little fox. Chapter 429. Li Ning and the other 2 only had to lean on the wall for support before they flipped over the wall with their superb lightness kung fu. Ever since Chunong taught them martial arts, the 3 of them were already at the top of the human world. Their movements were silent, and they were not afraid of being heard by others. There were indeed ghosts in Dara Temple. It was almost midnight, but there were still many people patrolling the area. Li Ning observed the patrolling pattern from afar. He released his dart from afar and eliminated all the hidden and overt sentries. Chen-Ong observed them for a while and saw that they were very disciplined. For Li Ning to be able to make such a name for himself in the Jianghu, he was naturally not someone to be trifled with. They were well versed in serving justice and socializing in the Jianghu. Had it not been for the heretical cultivators supporting Daluo Temple, Chen-Ong would not have needed to make a move. He secretly looked at the traces left behind by the evil sorcerer and knew that it was not a big case that could be done by a witch or a witch in the mortal world. For an evil sorcerer to have such ability, his mana must have reached the stage of Yin-Shin. His magic would no longer be tainted by things like black dog blood and menstruation in the mortal world. In Chen-Ang's eyes, they were still small fries that could be killed with a flip of his hand. But to the people of Jianghu, they were already legendary figures like the ancestors of the evil sects and the top masters of the evil sections. They were the leaders of the evil sects in Jianghu once in 100 years. The people of Jianghu could only look at them but not reach them. They were legends that had been passed down for hundreds of years. Below, Li Ning and the others were still approaching the main hall. The people in the temple had already noticed that something was wrong with the patrolling team. They shouted at the people outside, and when there was no response, they started to shout. This alerted the entire Dara Temple. Many ferocious and evil-looking monk soldiers rushed out with their Buddhist commandment blades. The leading monk, with a big scar on his face, cupped his hands and said, "Who is it that came to visit our Dara Temple? I don't know how I have offended you. Please come out and have a chat." Someone on the side shouted, "Who is hiding there? Come out and let me see you." Chen-Ong and Qing were shocked. They knew that the main character had arrived. Qing smiled and said they should have alerted the enemy and helped us see the situation clearly. Chen-Ong shook his head and said, "I'm afraid there are good people locked up in the temple. I'm going to take this opportunity to take a peek first, so that I won't accidentally injure a loved one." Then he sent out a bit of his spiritual sense to investigate the situation inside the temple. The 3 heroes of Qilu were highly skilled and daring. As soon as they were provoked by the evil monk of Dara Temple, they jumped out. Li Ning had learned the secret of hidden weapons from Chen-Ang's Heaven's Net Deception. He had a lot of embroidery needles in his waist pouch. With one needle, he took the life of a person in Dara Temple. He used his body movement technique, and the needles were like rain hitting a banana leaf. People kept falling down. This kind of scene was like an ancient cold weapon battle, and suddenly a machine gun appeared out of nowhere. The scene was very shocking. Dara Temple also had masters. When they saw Li Ning, they wanted to fly closer, but no one could get within 20 steps of him. The flying needles in the night sky were as small as mosquitoes, but they carried an indescribable force. This was the poison created by Tongguan. It was extremely sinister and strange. The person who was hit by the needles only felt a slight pain, like being bitten by a mosquito. After a short while, he lost consciousness as the poison attacked his heart. What a sinister martial art! The evil monk of Dara Temple, who was hiding in the main hall, shouted, "Who are you? Why are you looking for trouble with our Dara Temple? I, Iron Arhut Kuang Yuan, have never offended you. Why are you bullying us?" It seemed that his name had some influence in Jianghu. As soon as the 3 heroes of Qilu heard this, they sent Zhou Chun to stand in front of them and shouted, "Thieves! You have done many evil deeds, and now that retribution is upon you, you still want to quibble? The 3 of us have known about your evil deeds since half a month ago. We were afraid that we would wrongly accuse innocent people, so we tried to find out more. My big brother, Li Ning, even snuck into your den a few times. I saw with my own eyes that you kidnapped innocent people and imprisoned them in the temple. You abused them day and night, completely devoid of conscience. The scholar who came to your temple to play and bumped into your scandal was also secretly rescued by my big brother. Who would have thought that you would be so cruel and unscrupulous as to harm him again? Today we, the 3 heroes of Chilu, will not let you scum go." The evil monk heard this and laughed coldly. "So it's the 3 heroes of Chilu! I saw that it was not easy for you to cultivate your skills. So I took pity on your talent and wanted to spare your lives. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" He wanted to show off his skills, so he took out a gourd from his waist, opened it, and aimed it outside the main hall. He slapped the bottom of the gourd hard, and a black fog rushed out of the gourd. It flew around and occupied about half an acre of space. The black fog smelled the scent of a living person, and directly went towards the hiding place of the 3 heroes of Chilu. Chin-Ong could see clearly that the black fog was a swarm of poisonous bees the size of a thumb. There were hundreds of thousands of them. When these violent poisonous bees gathered together, they were more terrifying than any jackals, wolves, tigers, or leopards. No matter how high one's martial arts skills were, one would not be able to face them directly. The old monkey quietly asked, "Fellow Taoist, are you still not going to make a move?" This kind of harmful magic is not something that human martial arts can fight against. These poisonous fire wasps are domesticated by cultivators, and their poison is especially terrifying. They have also been sacrificed through blood sacrifice. They are bloodthirsty and violent and are known as the wind tiger. When they see blood, they are not afraid of death, and when they are burned by fire, they will turn into poisonous smoke. They are very difficult to deal with. Let's wait first. Although the poisonous bees are difficult to deal with, Li Ning is cautious and meticulous. He might have a way. Chin-Ong said. As soon as the poisonous bees flew out of the gourd, they gathered together and followed the scent of a living person. These mutants were cruel and bloodthirsty. When using evil methods to sacrifice, they often had to be fed blood. In order to sacrifice this gourd, that evil monk had harmed countless people. He was reluctant to spend money to buy cattle and sheep blood for these poisonous bees, so he killed people to raise them. As a result, their temperament was even more violent than ordinary poisonous bees, and they would go crazy when they smelled human blood. Zhou Chun was the first to rush forward, and he used his movement technique to deliberately provoke these poisonous bees. He took off his coat and rubbed it with his palm, igniting it. He then threw the burning coat at the swarm of bees and nimbly dodged the hidden weapons that flew out of the main hall. He slashed open the window with his palm and went into the main hall where the evil monks of Dara Temple were gathered. The swarm of poisonous bees buzzed angrily as they followed the direction in which Zhou Chun had escaped. At this time in the main hall, Zhou Chun darted left and right and shot out several kinds of hidden weapons, injuring many people. The poisonous bees went crazy when they smelled the blood and went into the main hall, biting anyone they saw. Even the evil monk who released the bees couldn't order them to do anything. He could only rely on some medicine to protect himself from being bitten. So how could he help others? In an instant, the main hall was filled with the howling of wolves and ghosts and the wailing of ghosts and screams. Relying on the movement technique that Chin-Ong taught him, Zhou Chun was the first to escape. Chapter 430. By this time the group of monks was in chaos. The vicious monk Iron Luohan Kuang Yuan, who released the poisonous bees, retreated in a sorry state. Li Ning and Yang were worried about their sworn brother's injury, so they did not pursue him. Kuang Yuan was preparing to retreat temporarily to avoid the Chilu 3 heroes, when suddenly he heard a man's hoarse voice behind him saying in a low voice, "Brother Kuang, let me lend you a hand." Kuang Yuan was overjoyed. "Mao Tai, you came just in time. Help me take down the 3 of them. If we disturb martial Uncle Longfei's practice, none of us will be able to bear the consequences." Mao Tai heard this and replied in a low voice, as if he was very afraid of this martial Uncle Longfei. His right hand was missing 2 fingers. When he saw Zhou Chun, his eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he shouted, Zhou Chun, I respected you and made friends with you out of goodwill. Who would have thought that you would turn your back on me? First, you cut off 2 of my fingers, and then you said you would let me go. But you immediately changed your mind and chased after me. If it wasn't for my master, I, Mao Tai, would have died a violent death. Now that my martial uncle Long Fei is here, if you retreat, you can still struggle at death's door. I'll talk to you when I finish my practice. Otherwise, if you alarm my martial uncle, your soul will be destroyed and you will not be able to reincarnate. Chen Ong heard it clearly, he thought. I was wondering why Mao Tai was able to escape from the hands of the 3 heroes of Qilu and Wang Ming. Turns out it was the golden body Arhut Fa Yuan who saved him, and also under the protection of the 7 hands Yiksha Long Fei. He was mixed with this Daluo temple's evil people. He pinched his fingers and calculated. It was indeed golden-bodied Arhut Fa Yuan who predicted that Mao Tai, who was destined to be his disciple, was in trouble and saved his life. As for the 7-armed Yiksha Long Fei, he was not in the flying Thunder Cave of Mount Wui. Instead, he came to Yingtian City to take the lives of those women. He wanted to use their souls to refine 18 Yin devils. Together with the 9 mother-son Yin spirit swords in his hand, he could unleash the power of many powerful spells. Fa Yuan will still have use for him in the future. If Xiyun Temple did not have him, they might not be able to provoke so many Wu Tai sect members. Su Feinyang doesn't have that much prestige. Only Fa Yuan, who joined the sect earlier than her, has always been loyal to the primordial chaos founding master, and has no record of betrayal, can suppress those demon Dao unorthodox sects and become the leader of benevolent Cloud Temple. Moreover, although Fa Yuan befriended many evil people, he himself did not commit any evil deeds. He could even be said to be clean and self-disciplined. If he was spared, he would not commit any evil deeds. The Xiyun Temple still needed him to invite many people to help them in the fight between good and evil. Only then were they able to invite the likes of the green-robed patriarch and the young moon Zen master. Chen Ong was unwilling to make a move and quietly watched from the side. They all knew that the 7-hand Yiksha, Long Fei, was the one they were waiting for. Among the 2 demons on the field, Mao Tai had just become his disciple and did not have any powerful abilities, while Kuang Yuan had been tricked by Zhou Chun into using his most powerful magic treasure, and was no longer a match for the 3 heroes of Qi and Lu. However, there was someone who could not hold back. Wang Ming became restless when he heard Mao Tai's name. He moved a little further forward, intentionally avoiding the 3 heroes of Qi and Lu. He first hammered his own nose until it was sore and tears flowed out. Then 2 invisible bugs sprayed out from his nose and flew toward Mao Tai. These 2 bugs were magical bugs that he cultivated. One was a sleeping bug and the other was a body-fixing bug. One could confuse one's mind, and the other could stiffen the body. Although it was not a powerful spell, it was good at hiding. The 2 bugs flew out at the same time and drilled into Mao Tai and Kuang Yuan's noses in a familiar way, and did not attract their attention. It was not until Kuang Yuan suddenly felt a strong sense of drowsiness that he could not stand still. He swayed a few times and was about to fall down that they realized something was wrong. Kuang Yuan pinched his thigh, using the pain to temporarily suppress his drowsiness, and shouted, "This is bad! Junior brother Mao Tai, we have fallen into someone's trap. Quickly go and call Uncle Master Long Fei." How could Mao Tai still move? Only his 2 eyes were moving around, revealing his anxiety. Kuang Yuan clenched his teeth and wanted to shout for help, but he felt his vision go black, and his head had already flown into the sky. Wang Ming raised the sword that was stained with his neck blood, and without even bothering to retrieve the red gourd in his arms, he rushed toward Mao Tai. Not to mention Mao Tai, even Li Ning and the other 2 were at a loss with this series of changes. Only Chenong and Qing could see clearly. Qing chuckled and said, "He's still a promising person." Wang Ming ran in front of Mao Tai, and without waiting for him to come back to his senses, he took his little life with a sword. The crane feather sword was sharp, and it directly cut off Mao Tai's head. Wang Ming held it in his hand, ignoring the evil monks beside him as he walked straight toward the three heroes of Qi and Lu. When he was less than 10 steps away from Li Ning and the others, Wang Ming stood still and cupped his hands toward them, saying, "Is Uncle Li Ning here?" Li Ning said hesitantly, You are Wang Ming?" He didn't know what had happened to Wang Ming these days. His youthful face, which used to be filled with expressions to let people know his face, was now indifferent and deep. It was no wonder that Li Ning didn't dare to recognize him for the time being. Wang Ming threw the head in his hand and bowed to Li Ning, saying, "Greetings, uncle, it is indeed Wang Ming." After a long time, Li Ning said, "Child, why don't you go see your uncle? He didn't get any news about you, so he was very worried." Wang Ming also didn't answer for a long time, and finally sighed, "Wang Ming can't go back any more. Uncle Li Ning, please pass a message to my uncle. Ask him to tell my old parents. Wang Ming is unfilial. Let them pretend that they never gave birth to me, their son, and then think of a way to continue the Wang family's lineage. They have another son in life, and I, this unfilial son, will pretend that I never raised him." Li Ning said angrily, "What are you talking about?" Wang Ming looked up to the sky and laughed in grief and indignation. "Uncle Li Ning, we haven't seen each other for a month. Does Wang Ming still enter your eyes?" Then he turned around and cried, "Do you know what price I have to pay for this?" He laughed 3 times, then cried 3 times, then turned around to leave. But he heard a hoarse voice shout, "Who is crying and laughing over there, making strange noises, disturbing my practice?" In a flash, a green sword light soared up from the back of the main hall, carrying a man with dark skin, thick joints, and a cold and gloomy body, more like a zombie than a human. Seeing the corpses in the Dara temple and Mao Tai and Kuang Yuanjun lying on the ground, he immediately showed an extremely cruel sneer and said, "You killed my martial nephew and made me lose face in front of F.A. Yuan. I'll make you pay with your lives." When the primeval chaos martial master was still around, F.A. Yuan often criticized him with the sect rules, and Long Fei was a little dissatisfied with his martial brother. Later on, he became the disciple of the White Bone God, Lord of the Cave of Gods and Demons on Mount Lu, and with the strength of 2 sects, he got into an argument with F.A. Yuan, but after all, he did not turn against him. Moreover, this martial nephew of his, Mao Tai, was greedy and lustful, which was quite to his taste. Seeing him lying on the ground, how could Long Fei not be angry? The 9 sons and Mother Yin spirit swords that Long Fei refined was a set of flying swords rarely seen in the evil sects, with a total of 24 swords. It was the set of flying swords from the Wu Tai sect that was the most harmful to heaven and harmony. The whole body was surrounded by green light, and the 9 sons and Mother Yin spirits were imprisoned on the swords. Who knew how many vengeful spirits were refined in the sword light? Chapter 431. Chen Ong snorted and let go of the power of the Milky Way that grabbed Li Ning and the other 2, shielding them behind him. He quietly spread out the stained Taoist robe on his body, and it turned into a thick yellow treasure light that enveloped the 4 of them. Then he patted the back of his head, and a large pearl soared up in front of him. Sure enough, he was a member of the thievery sect. He was rich, far from someone like Chen Ong, who had just reincarnated and only had a treasure of the devil refining true fire. I knew someone was lying in ambush. Without you, how could my 2 martial nephews be ruined by a few human heroes? How dare you 2 hide your heads and show your tails? If you surrender and accept your death, I can still leave you with a whole corpse. If you dare to resist, you will enjoy the pleasure of the devil refining fire. The sword light turned in the air and flew toward Chinong, and stealthily together with the 11 sword lights that flew out from Long Fei's body. Chinong opened his hand and released a devil refining true fire. Then he heard stealthily say, "Chen Daoyu, Long Fei's flying sword is powerful. It should be the true inheritance of the Wu Tai sect." Chinong also transmitted his voiceover and said, "This person isn't my match." I just noticed that there are many innocent girls in the dungeons in this temple. Fellow Taoist, you should go save those pitiful girls while he's out of the dungeons. I will kill all the evil creatures in this temple, so that they won't hurt the innocent." Hearing this, stealthily hesitated for a moment. How powerful was Long Fei's magic power? First, he had a master who was a top master of the side sect, the ancestor of time immemorial, who was of the same generation as the long-browed Taoist. Then, his master, the white bone god of the cave of gods and demons of Mount Lu, was also a giant of the devil path. It could be said that he had the top inheritance of the side sect of the devil path. His magic power was no less than stealthily. In comparison, although Chunong captured him as soon as they met, he did not know more about Chun Ang's background. Chunong saw that he was hesitating, so he waved his hand and shot out a stream of mana to wrap him up. Borrowing the power of the stars in the sky, he teleported and sent him down to the dungeon. In just a split second, Ching was teleported from the sky to the dungeon. Only then did he understand a little about Chunong, and he was extremely shocked. Qindao's mana is so powerful that seven-armed Iksha is really not his match. Borrowing the power of the stars to shift my escape technique is 10 times stronger than my magic power at night. Now that the sky is bright and the stars are hidden, the difficulty is more than 10 times higher. In that case, wouldn't Chen Dao's magical power be 100 times stronger than mine? Although Long Fei is strong, he is on par with me. If Chen Daoyu wants to kill him, it will only be a little troublesome. Immediately, he relaxed and began to rescue the poor people who were imprisoned here. On one side, Chun Ong used his magic power to teleport, but on the other side, he used the spirit flames of the eternal lamp to turn into a fire cloud, enveloping the entire Dara temple, compressing the space where Long Fei could move. The spirit flames in the fire cloud contained firepower. It looked like the sunset glow was hidden in the cloud. A few evil monks could not see through the secret within, and when they touched it with their hands, they were instantly burned into a pile of residue. A bunch of idiots. Long Fei snorted coldly. He looked at the remnants of the Dara temple who were hiding behind him. Suddenly, an ominous glint flashed in his eyes, and 6 more Een spirit swords flew out from his back, sacrificing all of them to the flying sword. With the help of the blood sacrifice, the 6 Een spirit swords merged with the previous 12 swords and gradually pushed away the approaching fire cloud, winning the space for the sword light to be displayed. Flying swords were the most commonly used treasures by cultivators. After generations of development, the swordsmanship of cultivators was broad and profound. It was truly one of the most unique skills in the world of Shu Mountain. A flying sword was extremely sharp and compatible with the primordial spirit. One sword could break through all kinds of techniques. It was really very pretentious, and it was very suitable for Chen Ang's taste. Chen Ang's magic power was one of the best in this world. With his understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth, he had accumulated a large amount of knowledge regarding energy, space, information, and dimensions. Even the most destructive spells in this world were at his fingertips. Not to mention a little 7-hand Iksha, Long Fei. Even if he wanted to turn the whole Jiangsu province into scorched earth, it would not be a problem. Whether it was using the heavenly river's magic power to break the earth's crust, using the flame of the eternal lamp in his hand to ignite the ancient earth lung-poisoned fire, turning a continent into scorched earth, or using the 9 heavens astral wind to attack the surface of the earth and grind off a layer of the earth's crust, it was all ordinary. If he were to launch a ruthless attack and draw the entire heavenly demon world into this world, countless Een demons and heavenly demons would rush out and destroy the world. Then he would spend some effort to draw the true fire contained in the sun star and burn this planet. However, when that time came, he would probably have to fall out with the spiritual immortal world and the heavenly realm. He would fight in the world of Shu Mountain until the heavens and earth were destroyed, countless galaxies shattered, and even time no longer existed. However, Chenong still quite liked this world. Of course, he would not do such a thing. In his mind, he was thinking about when to open the furnace to forge a flying sword for himself. The heavenly river's magic power surrounding him was refined into two bundles. With the heavenly true water and the lunar true water as the backbone, they turned into two sword lights and fought with Long Fei's 18 clasps 9 mother and child Yin spirit swords. Long Fei's sword light was sharp. Even though Chun Ang's heavenly river's magic power was profound and the condensed sword light seemed to have substance, it was not a proper flying sword after all. The moment it came into contact with Long Fei, the magic power of the sword light was even faintly dispersing. It was only until Chun Ang temporarily avoided the sharp edge of the Yin spirit swords and only cared about pointing, sticking, entangling, and attacking from the side. The sword light would leave as soon as it came into contact with the Yin spirit swords and did not fight head-on with them. Only then did the situation stabilize. Chun Ang's pure intention was to use Long Fei to hone his swordsmanship. Relying on his terrifying calculation ability and superb foresight, he tangled with Long Fei. In the beginning, he still needed Huiyan's help from time to time. Together with the sword light, he forced Long Fei to return to his sword to protect himself. Later on, as his swordsmanship became more proficient, he displayed all kinds of extreme swordsmanship that surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. Behind him, the three elites of Qilu, Wang Ming, and the others were dumbfounded. In the end, Chun Ang's two sword lights appeared in many places at the same time. To others, it seemed that Chun Ang had created many more sword lights. However, only Chun Ang knew that his two sword lights did not increase. The new sword lights that appeared were a superior state in the swordsmanship, sword light division. In this world, the swordsmanship of sword light division was not that rare. Many old seniors with profound cultivation had this skill. Only the cultivators who had just entered the Tao could rely on this to win the praise of a genius swordsmanship. However, people like Chun Ang, who used his own mana to create sword lights, were also unprecedented. At the beginning, Long Fei was still able to deal with it easily. However, when Chun Ang's swordsmanship became proficient, he became a little embarrassed. As he urged the sword lights to tangle with Chun Ang, he silently sensed Chun Ang's breath. The 6 Yin spirit swords that were protecting his body were ready to go. He secretly thought to himself, not only is this person's spell powerful, his swordsmanship is even more superb. At first there were some flaws, but later on he became more and more superb and didn't give me any chance. If I want to defeat him, I have to use a surprise attack. Otherwise, when he activates his spell and sword techniques, I can only abandon my flying sword and run for my life. If I am not careful, I might even be killed by him. Thus, he found an opportunity to release the wonderful appearance Yin demon that he had just refined. He wanted to catch Chun Ang off guard without making a sound. Then he took the opportunity to release the 6 Yin spirit swords in his hands. Together with the 18 swords on the field, he used the sword technique that he was most proud of in his life. The 24/9 mother and child Yin spirit swords killed the enemy. However, it would be fine if he did not move, but he would die easily. In terms of demonic path spells, Chun Ang was comparable to those old monsters that lived in seclusion in West Kunlun. Wasn't releasing the Yin demon to give Chun Ang a chance to intervene? Chun Ang smiled coldly and made a hand sign. Instead, he activated the wonderful appearance Yin demon and counterattacked his master, Long Fei. Long Fei shouted. The sword lights that were protecting his body faintly dispersed. Chun Ang's sword lights turned and moved several feet in the air. He directly passed through the gap of the sword lights that were protecting Long Fei's body and killed him with one strike. Even his primordial spirit was wiped away by the cold intent that the sword carried. Chapter 432. He opened his hand and kept the fire cloud. The Milky Way mana wrapped the 24/9 mother and child Yin spirit swords and returned them to Chun Ang's hand. Only then did he raise his hand to retrieve the 100 treasures pouch from Long Fei's corpse. He searched around and found some demonic items, which he kept into the 100 treasures pouch. Only then did Chinong use spiritual fire to refine Long Fei and the bodies of the evil monks in the temple. Looking at Mao Tai and Kuang Yuan's corpses, Chinong held the red-skinned bottle gourd in his hand and said to Li Ning, "Bring these two evil creatures' corpses to the officials to close the case, lest the imperial court disturbs the victims' families." He then looked at the huge wealth of the Dara temple and sneered, "Don't let those greedy officials benefit from this place. Divide the wealth that the demons collected into 3 portions. 1 portion will be given to the victims who were killed innocently. The other portion will be given to the innocent girls that Senior Sure. I will save later, so that they can use it to settle down. Keep the last portion for yourselves. In the future, when you are doing chivalry and helping the weak, you can also help if you encounter natural disasters." Li Ning replied respectfully, "Yes, master." Chinong saw that the 3 of them did not have any ulterior motives in their eyes, so he knew that this time the 3 of them were completely convinced. Even Zhou Chun was the same. He truly regarded himself as his master. The bottle gourd of poisonous fire wasps had already been burned by Chinong. Zhou Chun could not help but let out a grunt from the poison acting up. Li Ning was very worried when he heard this. He secretly blamed himself for not keeping any of the spirit crane saliva that Chinong had given him. Chinong saw through his worry and took out a jade bottle from his bosom. He passed it to Zhou Chun and said, "There are 9 pills in this bottle. Take 1, and it will cure the fire poison in your body." He then passed 2 more jade bottles to Li Ning and said, "Last month I refined pills with a few friends and got a share. Here are some pills for you guys. In the future, if you meet them in the pugilistic world, here are 3 bottles of pills. The bottle of 9 pills is called the exorcism pill. It can expel external demons and strengthen the foundation. In the future, when you use the pill to save people, just let them lick it." Seeing the 3 people's dumbfounded expressions, Chinong laughed and scolded, "It's not that I'm stingy. It's just that this pill has many miraculous effects. If you dissolve 1 pill in a well, you'll be able to create a medicinal well that can dispel colds and typhoid for 3 months without running out. It can cure tens of thousands of people. The fire poison in Zhou Chun's body can be dissolved in a large basin and can be used to cure hundreds of people." Hearing those words, how could Zhou Chun still dare to consume it? He hurriedly said, "Then I'll just lick it." "There's no need for that. I have my own reasons for letting you use it. I'm not worried about your martial arts skills when you're in Jianghu, but I'm afraid that you'll be plotted against and poisoned by evil spirits. After taking the exorcism pill, you'll be immune to 100 poisons. It's also my kind intention to help you. The 3 of you take 1 each. There are 2 kinds of pills left. 1 is the rebirth pill, which can reshape your bones. There are 3 pills in total. Think about how you'll use them. There are also 24 fasting pills, which can cure one of the most widespread diseases in the world. When you're in Jianghu, just lick it and you won't feel hungry for several days. Now that the world is in chaos, if there are refugees suffering from hunger, you must cherish this pill and treat them immediately. This pill can fill the stomachs of thousands of people. If you value this pill more than your lives, you'll no longer be my disciples." Hearing Chun Ang's serious words, Li Ning and the other 2 did not dare to act as if nothing had happened. They hurriedly kowtowed and swore, "We'll obey your orders. Anyone who disobeys will be struck by lightning." After Chinong finished instructing the disciples, he turned to look at Wang Ming with a faint smile. Wang Ming wanted to say something stubbornly. "I was the one who stole your magic treasure. I'll accept any punishment." Such bold words, but when he thought of Fate Creation Boy's teachings, he became weary and stood aside with his head shrunk. Unexpectedly, Chinong only asked him to leave Mao Tai's head and let him go with a wave of his sleeve. "Fate Creation Boy, did I earn enough fate to offset the consumption of the art of releasing bugs?" Wang Ming asked anxiously as he ran away. Fate Creation Boy said slowly, "It was enough, But now that I've helped you escape, it's not enough." "Ah," Wang Ming cried. "Wasn't it the Taoist who protected me? Will he protect you without fate? Will he let you go without consuming fate? Don't forget, you're the #1 suspect of the treasure theft. If you didn't consume the fate you got from Maotai, how could you be so smooth-sailing?" Wang Ming let out a blood-curdling scream and left in grief. Chin Ong waited for a while and quietly returned to the surface with dozens of young women. He said to Chin Ong, "Taoist friend, you're very skillful. I smelled the fragrance of the elixir below, and it attracted the old monkey's soul." Zhou Chun heard this and helplessly looked at the jade bottle in his hand. He looked up and saw the old monkey looking at him with its bright eyes. He looked at Chin Ong with a bitter smile. This thing was given to him by his honored master. It was okay to use it for chivalry, but he needed Chen Ang's permission to give it to others. Chin Ong shook his head and smiled. "Taoist friend, don't make things difficult for my disciple. If you want the elixir, I have more here. You're also a senior master. How can you covet the things of the younger generation?" Qing did not care. She rubbed her hands and said with a smile, "Ever since Patriarch Kong tasted the elixir of Tai Ching, this elixir has become our favorite. If I didn't know you well and know that your mana is strong, I might have gone to your cave to steal the elixir. A few months ago, I smelled an inexplicable elixir fragrance coming from Qixia Mountain in Yingtian. I was going to steal the elixir after solving this problem. But now that I smell it again, the person who is refining elixir in Qixia Mountain must be Taoist friend." He scratched his ears and cheeks and said anxiously, "I can't steal the elixir now. Taoist friend, you can give me a few and let me have a taste." Chin Ong did not know that there was such a thing. If it were not for him, Meng Xiaoshang on Qixia Mountain would have suffered. Chin Ong did not believe that Meng Xiaoshang could keep 1/3 of her elixir in Qing Er's hands. "Don't go. There is still the elixir of a Taoist friend of mine. She is a rogue cultivator and does not have much wealth. I don't need a lot of elixirs here. If you want, I will give them to you." As Chen Ong said this, he took out a few jade bottles from his arms and stuffed them all to Qing Er. When Qing Er heard that there were still elixirs, he pricked up his ears and put the jade bottles that Chen Ong gave him into his arms. Looking at his rolling eyes, Chen Ong knew that female Immortal Meng was going to be robbed again, but he did not want to point it out. Qing Er knew that Meng Xiaoshang was his friend, so he would not go overboard. He came from a rich family and would definitely give Meng Xiaoshang other compensation. It was also a good thing for Meng Xiaoshang to get to know such a senior, so there was no need for him to stop her. Chin Ong said to the old monkey, "These poor daughters, I still need you to send them back. If they have families, then send them back. If they don't, then find a way to settle them down. I still have some elixirs here that can replenish their vitality. Think of a way to cover them up so that they won't be looked down upon." The old monkey nodded and said, "Leave this place to me. I can also turn this place into a nunnery to settle those girls who have nowhere to go. I can also take care of them nearby so that they won't be bullied." As he said this, he waved his sleeves and took all the valuables that Li Ning and the others offered. There were more than 100,000 taels of silver, which was more than enough. Chin Ong said again, "Long Fei still has 24 spirit swords and many." When he said this, the old monkey interrupted him and said, "I don't have the power to dissolve the spirit on the sword. Besides, you were the one who killed him. So what does it have to do with me? Don't mention it again." He was itching to do it again and laughed. "But I won't stand on ceremony with him in the flying thunder cave of Mount Wui. When the time comes, I will go and look for it, and I will give you a share." There was a woman next to him who was also kidnapped by the thieves from Dara Temple. But there were virtuous and foolish people. Some of the kidnapped women also hooked up with the evil monks from the temple. Chun Ong and Shur were aware of this, but they didn't care about it. This woman was one of them. Her name was Yang Shur. She came from a small family and didn't have a name. She only had the name of the flower in the devil's cave, Xiangxiang. Yang Xiangxiang learned a lot of tricks from the evil monks in the temple. When she saw that Chinong and the others had strong mana, she changed her mind and cried out, "Two immortals! I really have nowhere to go. Please take me in. I will do anything for immortals to repay you for saving my life." She originally thought that even if the two of them looked down on her ruined appearance, they would at least comfort her a little. Then she could take advantage of the situation to seek death. Even if she couldn't climb up to the higher branches, she would still be able to get a big share of those 100,000 taels of silver. Unexpectedly, when she said this, not only did Chinong and Er's faces turn cold, even Li Ning and Yang sneered. Chapter 433. Everyone present was as cunning as a ghost. How could they not see through her little thoughts? Chinong did not speak. He just smiled and said, "We are all unaffiliated people who live like wild cranes. We eat and sleep in the open all day long. We can't take in a girl like you. You'd better find your own way out." After saying that, he gave her 10 taels of silver and sent her away. At this time, although Jiangnan of the Great Ming Dynasty was rich and populous, 10 taels of silver was enough for a farmer's family to make a living for a year. With the silver, Yang Xiangxiang could go to her relatives or find her own way out. It would be enough for her to settle down and live a life. But how could Yang Xiangxiang be willing to give up? Although she was ravaged in the temple, it was only for a girl from a good family. If she was willing to degenerate, the living conditions in Dara Temple were 100 times better than that of an ordinary farmer's family. It was comparable to that of a young lady from a rich family. Although she had to suffer the ravages of the Ing monks in the temple, it was not a shame to her. So how could she be willing to return to that kind of life? Although her parents were still around and she was not an orphan without a background, but to return to the life of a farmer's family was worse than killing her. She simply threw caution to the wind and used her skills to serve the fake monks, messing up her clothes, letting her hair down, and pouncing towards Chinong. Her pouncing was also a little particular. She could tell that among the 5 people, Chinong and Xinqinger were the leaders, and Xinqinger was a sloppy old monkey. In contrast, Chen Eng's appearance was that of a young man with a red face and white teeth, so he should know who to pounce on without asking. Chun Ong smiled coldly and spread out the Milky Way mana around his body, creating a strong repulsive force around his body. Yang Xiangxiang wanted to pounce on him several times, but she could not get within 10 feet of Chin Ong. Yang Xiangxiang was unwilling to give up. She broke free from Li Ninglai's hand and screamed, "After this, how can I face the world? Since the immortal elder is not willing to accept me, Xiangxiang has nowhere to go. I can only die." As she said this, she rushed towards a stone pillar, intending to touch the pillar and die. Chun Ong didn't even try to stop her. He just looked at her coldly. Yang Xiangxiang was riding a tiger and couldn't back down. Seeing no one stopping her for a long time, she made up her mind and slowed down her pace, crashing into the stone pillar. She estimated that the strength she used was just enough to cause her to bleed and faint, but definitely not to the point of death. As soon as she touched the stone pillar, Yang Xiangxiang blacked out. Chen Ong glanced at the woman who was knocked out by Er's arcane energy and coldly ordered his disciple, "Drag her out!" Li Ninglai's face was red. With his martial arts skills, he should have been able to subdue a woman who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. But she hit him with her chest, and Li Ninglai was a sincere gentleman, so she broke free. When she heard Chun Eng's order, she asked 2 of the stronger ones among the group of women to drag her out. Chun Ong said lightly, "Your senior martial brother Li Ninglai is a gentleman, so it's easy for him to be coerced. In my family, there's a special term for this. It's called moral coercion. But I'm not a gentleman, I'm just a cultivator. Towards this kind of discontented person, I'll only let her know the principle of self-improvement. I'll never satisfy her. Even if she hits her head and dies here, I won't treat her differently. There are so many matters of life and death in the world. If we care about them all, then what's the point of cultivating as an immortal and seeking the Tao of Balls?" As soon as he finished, he shook his sleeves and left with his 3 disciples to deal with the aftermath, and left with to displaying the coldness of a cultivator to the extreme. Chen Ong had only cultivated once in Yingtian City, but he had already used up 3 days' worth of water vapor within 100 miles, so he didn't dare to cultivate again. It was almost the spring equinox. Rainwater was as precious as oil to farmers, and water vapor was related to the production of countless farmers and commoners. Even the biggest scoundrel in the world wouldn't go so far as to ruin a year's worth of hard work for his own insignificant benefit. It just so happened that, with Sure Er's help, the two of them dispelled the evil spirits on the 24/9 Mother and Childine soul swords. Other than the essence of the 5 metals, the devils, Yin Qi, and the forbidden souls were all dispelled. If it wasn't for Chen Ang's spiritual flame that could refine demons, this hard work would have taken the two of them more than 10 days. Longfei's 9 Mother and Childine soul swords were one of the best flying swords among the unorthodox sects, and it was passed down from the Wu Tai sect. In this world, other than Amei, the Wu Tai sect was the best in the art of refining swords. The Sky Demon Fairy Slaying Sword, 5 Poison Fairy Slaying Sword, and 100 Spirits Fairy Slaying Sword were all famous, and they were the most amazing importations among the unorthodox sections. Other than harming the harmony of heaven, their power was extremely strong, and they were worthy of being the trump card that the master of Hunyuan thought hard about to deal with Amei. Although the evil spirits on the swords were dispelled and the restrictive spells were broken, the 24 flying swords were still the best sword embryos in this world. As long as Chen Ong refined them with the 7 great true water and practiced the restrictive spells of the Milky Way mana, it would be a set of flying swords that suited him. Cultivators practiced flying swords, and it was the best hard work in cultivation. How powerful was the master of Hunyuan of the Wu Tai sect? The Wu Tai sect was also the only sect among the unorthodox sects that could be compared to Amei. They used all their strength, but they still could not practice the Sky Demon Fairy Slaying Sword during the sword fight between the two parties. How famous were the 3 deities of the Eastern Sea? In order to refine a golden light, blazing sword that could restrain magic, they also worked hard in the Eastern Sea for many years. One must know that it was not easy to refine a flying sword. Take the essence of the 5 metals that were commonly used in the sword embryos. For example, one might not be able to refine one tail out of hundreds of thousands of kilograms of refined iron. It was fine if it was hundreds of thousands of kilograms of refined iron. But how difficult would it be to refine hundreds of thousands of kilograms of pure gold? For example, the 24 sword embryos of the 5 metals in Longfei's hands were extracted bit by bit from the endless magma in the Earth's mantle. As for the cultivation resources in the human world, during the Han Dynasty in the Central Plains, the resources that the nobles could easily use were long squandered by the necromancers at that time, causing the Central Plains to suffer from a shortage of gold. Not to mention the elixirs and resources needed to purify the flying sword to improve its essence and spirituality. There were more than 3,300 elixirs, and it took hundreds of years of hard work by cultivators to collect them. Moreover, they had to use their external skills to offset it, so that they would not be punished by the heavens. As for the cultivators of the unorthodox sects of the Devil Path, they had no external skills to offset, and they were worried that the heavenly punishment would come early, so they could only use the souls and flesh of humans and animals to sacrifice to the flying sword to increase the power and spirituality of the magic forbidden spells on the flying sword. From this point of view, the population was probably the easiest resource for cultivators to collect. If the cultivation of the Devil Path was not afraid of the heavenly punishment, it could be 100 times faster than the cultivation of the righteous path. Just like that, in order to refine this set of 9 child and mother spirit swords, Longfei did not know how much effort he had put in and how many people he had killed. He also had the help of his master, the Lord of White Bones of the Cave of Gods and Demons of Mount Lu, to successfully refine it. He became one of the few experts among the survivors of the Wu Tai sect, and was not inferior to Fei Yuan. Chapter 434. In order to forge a set of suitable flying swords, Chin Ong made up his mind and didn't even care about the demon refinement light lamp flame that he was refining. This set of demon-slaying treasures that had made him great contributions had its true fire of the sun extracted from it, and its vitality was greatly damaged. This wisp of true fire of the sun was used by Chin Ong to refine the sword embryo, making it even sharper. Different from the original 9-child and mother spirit swords, Chin Ong didn't need powerful restrictive spells, nor did he need the flying swords to carry powerful spells and special vitality, because no powerful spell or restrictive spell would be as terrifying as the one he cast himself. The filth, spiritual light, and ghost restrictive spell were all superfluous to him. The flying swords he needed only had to be strong enough to bear the power of the Milky Way and be sharp enough. For ordinary cultivators, such flying swords were naturally unconventional, but for someone as strong as Chin Ong, it was the most suitable. In his hands, the sharpness could break all spells, split mountains and seas, and there was nothing that couldn't be cut by the sword. Seeing him being so extravagant that he was actually willing to destroy the only magic treasure in his hand, Qing'er couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Fellow Taoist really has the demeanor of our stealing sect, coming fast and leaving fast. Back then, Patriarch had countless good things in his hands, but he gave them all to his friends and disciples. Fine, fine. After eating so many of your pills, this old monkey isn't a stingy person. He took out a handful of silver sand from his 100 treasures pouch and gestured to Chin Ong. This old monkey doesn't have anything else, but Patriarch left behind 9 taels of Milky Way star sand. This old monkey will add another 2 kilograms of Western true gold, and I'll give it to you to refine into your sword embryo, which will increase your accumulation. Chin Ong smiled. Fellow Taoist must be joking. This is far more than just an accumulation. Milky Way star sand, Western Tai true gold, seabed 10,000-year cold iron, Western gung metal primordial essence, Earth core magnetic divine iron, Eastern Tai primordial essence, and so on are the 9 types of true gold that are most suitable for refining swords in the universe. If others could get 1 tael, they would value it as much as their lives. Fellow Taoist has given me so much at once, which I'm afraid is even more precious than the 24 sword embryos that Long Fei refined. Chin Ong doesn't dare to accept it. Qing'er pretended to be angry and said, I have the flying swords left by Patriarch Connor, so what is the point of taking these things? I can't withstand so many years of hard work. Yesterday, when I asked you for pills, you didn't even blink and gave them to me. Today, I'm giving you real gold, which may not be more precious than those pills. But you don't want to accept it? But do you think that I am not as generous as you and will regret this little thing? Refining 4 for 2 to be to 1 to combine 4. Sword, but to for fellow you have for my for it's save for sword. Next year, if I have nothing to do, I will personally come to help you. If I have something to deal with, I will send this treasure over. The old monkey was just thinking about it. He was a magnanimous person and knew that the things in Qing'er's hands came and went quickly. He was very generous to his friends and disciples, so he didn't take it to heart. Now that Chin Ong had pointed it out, he knew that he was going to be entangled in a tribulation silently. His enemies who were entangled in karma with him would come and find trouble with him in the future. Now that Chin Ong had pointed it out, he knew that he was going to be entangled in a tribulation silently. His enemies who were entangled in karma with him would come and find trouble with him in the future. Unintentionally, he had gotten the help of a strong helper like Chin Ong. This was also a good karma. Taking the chance, when Chin Ong pointed it out, the old monkey calculated for a while. A hint of clarity flashed in his eyes, and he thanked Chin Ong. I will need to trouble fellow Taoist for your help. Chin Ong nodded and said with a smile, Of course. If fellow Taoist is willing, you can take the chance to end your life. In your next life, you will have the hope of attaining enlightenment. The monkey shook his head and said, I had already given up on the hope of attaining enlightenment, but I have a fortuitous encounter in this tribulation. It's hard to make a decision now. It's better to wait for the tribulation to arrive before making a decision. After the two of them spoke, they saw that the sun was about to rise again. Hence, they harvested the purple aura from the east and activated the sun essence, true fire, to refine the sword embryos. Under the refinement of the sun essence, true fire, the 24 sword embryos shrunk day by day. 12 of them were refined by Chun-Ong into a ball and kept in his dantian to be nourished as the embryos for refining treasures in the future. As for the remaining 12 sword embryos, they were refined by Chen-Ong with the sun essence, true fire, during the day and the moon essence, true water, at night. The yin and yang water and fire alternated to refine them day by day. 9 days later, Chen-Ong refined 9 tails of celestial river star sand into the sword embryos. Day and night, he used the celestial river magic power to grind and refine the sword embryos. 18 days later, he used the Tai true gold from the west to refine the sword embryos. Every day, he used the sun essence, true fire, to refine the sword embryos until they were extremely sharp. At night, he refined the sword embryos until they were as soft as water. Time passed from winter to spring. Finally, when the sword embryos were about to be completed, he had to refine 1 primordial waterscape sword every hour for 24 hours a day. The 12 primordial waterscape swords were like a wheel. Every day there was a cycle and there was no time for rest. It was extremely tough. If it wasn't for Li Ning and the other disciples who went to the city to purchase fruits and vegetables and sent them up the mountain every day and secretly took over some of the unimportant steps, Chen-Ong might not even have time to catch his breath for 3 months, let alone eat and drink. Until the first thunder of summer solstice, the 12 primordial waterscape swords were refined by the heavy rain drawn by the celestial river magic power. The dense water vapor from the East Sea, the essence of the celestial river, turned into Tiani true water and seeped into the sword embryos. It was in harmony with the celestial phenomenon. Because of this, the sword embryos lost all fire power and the sword embryos were finally completed. It entered Chun-Ang's head and hid in his dantian to receive the magic power. In the future, as long as he continued to refine it with the 7 types of true water magic power, its spirituality and power would continue to grow. Even now, this set of 12 primordial waterscape swords was one of the strongest flying swords in the world. With the addition of a small fry like the 7-armed Yiksha Longfei, Chen-Ong only needed 1 sword to slay them. The nature of the flying swords was sharp. In Chun-Ang's hands, it was hard to find a magic weapon that could block it. Ordinary protective magic weapons could not withstand its sharpness. Just a few days ago, Fate Creation Boy, who was lying in ambush beside Wang Ming, sent over the white sun painting of Immortal Baiyang. Just as Chen-Ong had expected, the key to forming a bond with Immortal Baiyang was the kingdom of small people near the Wind Cave Mountain. Wang Ming was ordered by Fate Creation Boy to do a few good things for the kingdom of small people. Thus, he formed a bond with Immortal Baiyang. When he went to look for Baiyangya, he found him easily. When he was learning the painting, he was not driven away by Cui Wugu, who was protecting him. Instead, he was guided by this righteous senior and entered the path of cultivation. This scroll of painting had long been sent over by Fate Creation Boy. However, Chen-Ong had been busy refining the flying swords and did not have time to study it. Now he could take advantage of his rest time to integrate the principles of the painting into the foundation of the Milky Way Dharma power. It became more stable and added another layer of mystery to his Dharma power. As for Wang Ming, who had made such a great contribution to Chen-Ong, he continued to be ordered by Fate Creation Boy to fight against the roving bandits in Shaanxi, to protect the great Ming dynasty, and to uphold justice. Now he had made a name for himself in the martial arts world of Shaanxi. People called him the Crane Feather Sword Wang Ming, Swordsman Wang. It was said that he went against the roving bandits and the people of the Green Forest. He helped the government to defeat the bandits, who tried to attack the city several times. Chapter 435. Chun-Ong used the white sun diagram to supplement the Milky Way manna. Another benefit was that the Milky Way manna finally had a rudimentary path. The Milky Way manna was originally a technique used by cult leader Chin from another world to guide the Milky Way. It was derived by Chun-Ang's absolute wisdom. There was no rudimentary path to this technique. If one wanted to master it, they would need to have Chun-Ang's knowledge and wisdom to immediately achieve the Milky Way manna. This manna was definitely not friendly to beginners. If one wanted to master it outside of Chun-Ong, they would need to be a Buddhist almighty who had achieved the Arhot Tao fruit and obtain a bit of Chun-Ang's spiritual knowledge. Then they would abandon Buddhism and enter Taoism. After reincarnating for more than 10 lifetimes, they would ponder over it day and night, using all the wisdom of their previous lifetimes to comprehend it. Only then, after 12 lifetimes, they would have a chance to suddenly comprehend it and master this Milky Way manna. Obviously, this prerequisite did not exist at all. Now that he had the white sun diagram as a reference, Chun-Ong could calculate the basic Taoist techniques of breathing, meditation, guidance, and meditation. Absorbing a trace of water vapor during qi cultivation, tempering it to match with one's own true qi, and visualizing the 9 crucial Milky Way true talismans, one could transform one's own manna into the Milky Way manna and enter the rudimentary path. Although it was still complicated and difficult, it was still countless times better than the slim possibility before. This basic Taoist technique was the same as the white sun diagram. It was based on guiding qi cultivation. There were a total of 4 levels and 528 human-shaped diagrams. With a set of basic breathing techniques, one could enter the rudimentary path. In the beginning, one had to practice the 24 solar term guiding diagrams from the beginning of spring to the end of great cold. Only then would one be able to transform one's warm water attribute, true qi, into cold true qi. These 24 diagrams were the most demanding. Not only did they require the practitioner to cultivate true qi, but they also had to conform to the weather. Only in the corresponding solar term could one drive the true qi to transform. This was because if one wanted the human body's true qi to transform into the power of Xianming true water with a trace of extreme cold, one had to rely on the external conditions of the solar term. Only by using the power of nature as one with heaven and man could one survive this tribulation. In other words, under the best circumstances, it would take a year to master this set of guiding breathing diagrams. If there was an unfortunate failure, he would have to wait until the next year. If his aptitude was not good enough, he would never be able to master it in his lifetime. Of course, Chun-Ong had also designed an unorthodox method to cultivate this level. He would bury himself in the extremely cold frozen earth that would never melt for 10,000 years and lay dormant for a month. If he didn't die and came out of seclusion, he would also be able to cultivate this level. As for the second level, the 36 moon breathing guidance diagrams refined the extremely cold nether true qi into extreme yin and softness. The third level, the 108C swallowing guidance diagrams refined the extreme yin, cold, and softness true qi into incomparably thick, heavy, and broad. The last level, the 361 sky water guidance diagrams changed the body, refining the clear and turbid true qi in the true qi, visualizing 9 true talismans to cultivate a drop of heavenly river magical power. The obstacles and checkpoints were terrifying. Some of them were even deliberately designed by Chun-Ong. Although they would be useful in the future, there was no lack of intention to make things difficult for others. Chun-Ang's vision was very high. If one wanted to obtain his inheritance, they would first have to shed a layer of skin. Chun-Ong cultivated in this way for another 10 days. Finally, he arranged everything properly. On the last day, he imparted the most important 9 true talismans of the newly cultivated foundation, Tao, Book 1 Sky, Water, True Form Diagram, to his 3 disciples, and officially accepted them as outer disciples. This meant that Li Ning and the other 2 were no longer just disciples in name, but had obtained a part of the true teachings. Of course, Chin Ong had used the advanced experience on Earth to design the levels of inner disciple, true disciple, inner disciple, last disciple, successor, and so on to ensure that everyone could level up. Even if they ascended to become immortals, they could still level up. If Chen Ong was more ruthless, he could create inner disciples of the lower level, inner disciples of the upper level, inner disciples of the top level, half-step true disciples, and so on. The process would be even more endless. After imparting a part of the true inheritance, Chin Ong bid farewell and flew to the East Sea on the Sword Light. He crossed hundreds of miles of dangerous mountains and rivers and landed on the shore of the East Sea. The human world of Mount Shu was a huge planet slightly smaller than the Sun. The two poles were separated by 10,936,365 miles, and its volume was about 500,000 times that of the Earth. However, the territory of the established imperial court of the divine central continent was only 10 times the size of the Ming dynasty of the Earth. The rest of the land was filled with endless mountains and rivers. There were countless spiritual birds and strange beasts. Poisonous dragons and giant rocks roamed the wilderness, and mountains higher than 37,951 feet were everywhere. There was also the spiritual realm above the stars outside the atmosphere. The stars in the sky had stars attached to the outside of the planet, and there was also a main star like Mount Shu orbiting countless light years away. The Mars star that Chan Ong wanted to refine was a satellite that was very close to the planet of Mount Shu. It was much smaller than the main star of Mount Shu, about the size of 500 Earths. Therefore, the East Sea here was not the narrow coastal sea on the Earth. Instead, it was truly boundless. Even if the great Ming dynasty sent 800 treasure ships and fleets, they would not be able to explore the edge of the huge ocean. Because the four seas were calculated with the great Ming dynasty as the center, the four seas were still relatively close to each other. Chin Ong walked from the coastal sea of the East Sea to the South Sea. He could reach the South Sea in about a month by flying on the sword without rest. If he was willing to use the heavenly stars shifting technique, he would not even need to take a breath. It could be said that he could reach the South Sea with a mere thought. However, Chen Ong did not want to use the Dharma shifting technique to be so high profile. He had originally planned to sell a good ship and use the Dharma shifting technique to refine it. He could reach the South Sea in about a year. But now that he had the 12 Yuan Chen waterscape sword, the sword light shifting technique was countless times faster than the ship, so there was no need for that. He could just use the sword light shifting technique. If he felt bored, he could also rest on the islands of the East Sea. Coming out from the seaside, Chin Ong rode the sword light and flew for a day. Everywhere he looked was a stretch of seawater. Not to mention Chin Ong, even Macho, who was in his sleeve, found it boring. Other than the boundless water vapor for Chin Ong to cultivate at will, there was no point in cultivating the heavenly river magic power. He was not afraid that the water vapor would be sucked dry and cause a drought. The strange scenery in the sea, the interesting strange beasts, all passed by in a flash of the sword light. After a long time, it would make people feel annoyed. Chin Ong saw that from time to time, he could see the giant dragon whale emerging from the sea. Not long ago, he saw a group of sea loaches playing. He thought, why should I be in a hurry? It is rare to come to such a lively world. Why should I rush, afraid that I will miss the plot? The chess piece has been buried, and catching the main god is not a matter of a short time. I might as well take a good tour of the mountains and rivers of this world. After 20 years, I will rush back in time. He was still thinking about the calamity of the old monkey during the Dragon Boat Festival next year. He was going to find a sea beast with a huge back that he could ride on. He was going to subdue it and make it his mount, so that he could slowly travel the four seas and enjoy the magnificent scenery of the East Sea. Chapter 436. What Chan Ong cultivated was the most wonderful water element mana in this world. It was also convenient for him to dive into the sea. Once he wrapped himself with the Milky Way manna, he would dive into the sea. His swimming speed would not be any slower than the whale dragons in the sea. Once he entered the sea, he would be like a fish swimming in water. He would only feel that he could dive deep into the water as he wished. It was as if he was born with this ability, a daffodil in his life. In this world, the sea was 1,000 times more fertile than the land. Chen Ong had only glanced at the flowers for a few moments, but he had already seen several kinds of extremely precious spiritual herbs on the land. He was not greedy, so he plucked some as he saw them. Taking 3 and leaving 7 would not harm the unity of heaven. Along the way, he also paid attention to sea beasts that were suitable for riding. These sea beasts were not difficult to find. Whether it was a whale dragon with a wide body or a turtle with a flat shell, as long as its back was wide and suitable for living. However, those that Chinong saw either looked down on their small bodies or looked down on their slow swimming speed. He really could not find a suitable one. After all, the sea beasts that met his requirements were too big and were not used to foraging in one place. Otherwise, with their appetite, it would not take long for them to finish an entire sea region. Chin Ong could not bear to let them forage for food every day. They had to be cultivated sea beasts or species that could not eat for a month. This choice was even more difficult. Fortunately, the scenery in the sea was dazzling. Chin Ong did not feel bored. Instead, he felt that it was good to continue touring. The sea region in this world is too big. Without the help of the ocean currents, it is almost impossible for mortals to travel. I asked around in Yingtian City. The sea merchants here all count the days and take the ocean currents to do business. The ocean currents are like highways in the sea. Ships can travel with the ocean currents when there is no wind. Their speed is 100 times faster than sailing. Chin Ong walked towards the open sea. He slowed down along the way. It was obvious in the sea. However, he did not expect that there was a population and civilization on land. There were even countries in the sea. It was just that the sea region was huge and the living environment was harsh. It was especially difficult for fish to reproduce. Even so, there were several sea countries in the East Sea. Their territories were larger than the Great Ming Dynasty. It was just that their population was slightly lower. They were all different species of sea tribes, and it was difficult for them to reproduce. Among them was the Merfolk Kingdom, which was near where Chinong was. It had a vast territory, and with Chun Ang's actions, they would cross paths sooner or later. After traveling for more than 200 kilometers this time, he discovered a mutated dragon whale in front of him. It had a strong vitality and a wide body, and there was a natural depression on its back, just like a natural mount. Chin Ong had finally found this kind of sea beast. With a leap, he landed on the back of this dragon whale. The celestial river Dharma power descended and coiled this huge, mutated dragon whale up. Chin Ong was going to suppress this giant beast's resistance. But unexpectedly, this dragon whale was so docile that it didn't even have a temper. Being suppressed by Chin Ong, it obediently stopped, silently looking at Chin Ong with a pair of intelligent eyes. Before Chin Ong could communicate with it, he heard a pleasant voice coming from the belly of the dragon whale. "Why did you stop us?" "I'm the 6th princess of the Dacheong Sea Nation, and I'm on an inspection tour on my father's orders. May I know which immortal elder is coming, and can you come down for a chat?" Following the direction of the voice, he saw someone grabbing its huge fin from the side of the belly of the dragon whale, and a head popped out. It was a young girl who looked to be about 16 or 18 years old, and her chest was wrapped in a strange kind of silk. Below her waist, she didn't have human legs, but a slender tail fin. Other than that, she looked no different from a normal person, just more beautiful. When the young girl saw Chun Ang's curious gaze, she blushed slightly and said, "Is this the first time you've seen a mermaid immortal elder?" Chin Ong smiled calmly and said, "I was born on land, and this is the first time I've been in the sea since I started cultivating. If I've been rude, please forgive me, princess. I stopped the dragon whale just now because I didn't know it had an owner, and I just wanted to find a mount." "I see. There are different kinds of dragon whales in the sea, but this kind of hollow-belly red-ridged dragon whale was domesticated by us mermaids, and the scattered immortals and sea clans in the sea all know that this is the mount of our royal family. If it wasn't for the fact that my father gave me one, I would have given one to you." The mermaid princess smiled and said, "If a mortal elder is free, why don't you come and sit inside the dragon whale? Other than the scattered immortals who live here for a long time, we mermaids know the sceneries of the sea the best. If a mortal elder is interested, I can tell you one by one. I also want to hear some stories about the land. We mermaids also admire the prosperity of the Ming dynasty." Chen Ong followed her and saw that there was a soft pouch under the belly of the dragon whale. Someone inside invited him over. Only then did he know that these dragon whales had been domesticated for generations by the mermaid sea nation, and some of them were born with the ability to carry people and things. There were 2 soft pouches under the belly, just like a monkey's pouch, and they went straight into the belly of the dragon whale. The dragon whale had a special ability. It could eat food that was a few times bigger than its body size. This kind of dragon whale had an even stronger ability. There was a space that was 10 times bigger in its belly, and it was made into a house by the mermaids to carry people and things. However, because of this, the dragon whale needed a kind of precious fish oil to be fed to maintain the consumption of such a huge body size. This kind of fish oil was a rare treasure that couldn't be found on land, and it was also a treasure in the mermaid sea nation. Therefore, this kind of dragon whale was also quite rare in the sea nation, and only the mermaid royal family could use it. The belly of the dragon whale was decorated with seaweed, and the soft seaweed was wonderful to step on. Corals, pearls, strange stones, and seaweed weaved soft pouches. The water inside was up to the chest, and it was the most convenient for the mermaid sea nation to move. The 3rd princess also wanted to let people drain the water to make it easier for Chinong to walk, but Chinong refused, seeing that he could move as usual and was more used to it than the mermaid sea nation. The 3rd princess didn't force him. The human race is really blessed by nature. The ability of cultivators is 100 times more convenient than the ability of us, the mermaid sea nation. The 3rd princess complimented. Chin Ong asked in surprise, "Are there no cultivators in the mermaid sea nation?" "If you can pick one out of 10,000 cultivators in the human race, it would be difficult for us, the mermaid sea nation, to have one even if there are 100,000 or a million of them. Especially us, the mermaid sea nation, because of our long lifespan, we live a rich life, and we can exchange many treasures from the Ming dynasty. We lack the heart of Tao, and we can only rely on our natural ability to control water to resist the disasters in the sea. Normal mermaid sea nation are like servants to us, and we won't give them the chance to cultivate. And most of the mermaid sea nation are addicted to pleasure, and they don't have the heart of Tao. The mermaid sea nation doesn't know the language of Middle-earth, and they haven't understood the culture of Middle-earth, so it's difficult for them to cultivate. As time goes by, there are no cultivators, and they don't think much of it. So people like Princess, who admire the Tao of immortality, are actually very rare in the mermaid sea nation." Chinong nodded and said, Chapter 437. In fact, there was no taboo. During the Yellow Emperor's time, Guangchengzi passed down the 9 heavens mystic scripture. Not only did the Yellow Emperor cultivate it himself, but he also taught it to his imperial concubines. Later, they ascended together from the emperor's mausoleum. When they reached the heaven realm, they also cultivated the emperor's fruit of Tao. There was no taboo for their officials and imperial concubines. Even Lu En, the Duke of Huainan in the Han Dynasty, had the achievement of ascension. However, after the Han Dynasty, cultivators gradually realized that the dynasty's karma was not conducive to ascension, so they gradually faded out of the court. After a few powerful necromancers were dragged down by Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, the process became faster. Until the end of the Song Dynasty, the Central Plains lost the Han Dynasty. How could the cultivators look up to the barbarian court? They were not willing to get involved in the court affairs anymore. As for the relatives of the emperor, After many experiences, cultivators found that they were greedy for power, and the entanglement of karma was difficult to solve. This was not the nature of cultivators. Ordinary cultivators would be burdened for several generations to protect their family members to ascend. The karma of the emperor's relatives was deeply rooted, and it was 100 times more difficult for them to ascend. The only advantage they had was that they were powerful and could collect more resources. However, this would create karma with heaven and earth. Which cultivator would feel that the burden on his shoulders was too light and be willing to bear the burden of the karma of his disciples' family? If there were a few unfilial, stupid, and ill-natured people, Li Jingxiu only accepted 2 sinful disciples, but he was forced to not ascend. He had to accept a whole family of disciples. It was like a nightmare. Since Duke Ba accepted Luin, the Duke of Huainan, cultivators knew the nature of these people. They were not willing to get involved with them anymore, afraid that they would be entangled by them. In this world, there are plenty of people who have no parents and no worries. If they can't be a disciple, why should they go and provoke these stinking dogs? Of course, Chen Ong could not tell her this directly. He said, "You are a stinking dog. I accepted you as my disciple, but you asked me to help your father. Even if I help your father, he will not be satisfied. He also wants to accept your brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews. In the end, the whole mermaid royal family will have to rely on me, and the whole Deqiong Sea Kingdom will be on me." Isn't this a little too ungentlemanly? Although this was the truth, Qinon had to put it in a more tactful manner. Fortune, prosperity, and longevity cannot be the 3 things. People's lives are easy, but not easy can lead to changes. If the fate of your royal clan is complete and unchanging, it would be against humanity. Cultivators are the followers of the heavenly Tao, and the imperial edict is the followers of the human Tao. Celestial beings cannot offend each other. The 3rd mermaid princess said in disappointment, "I see. It seems like Ling Sha is not fated to be with him." The room set up by the mermaids was a soft bag woven from seaweed. The softest and toughest seaweed was used to weave it skillfully. Mermaids were nimble with their hands. The mermaid silk, hanging in the soft pouch, was as light as the clouds in the sky. It had no mass in the water. The soft pouch was woven in the same way. Chunong lay on it and felt very comfortable. He could also smell the faint fragrance of the seaweed, which made him feel relaxed and happy. The inside of the dragon whale was like a small palace. Chin Ong glanced around and realized that the great Cheong kingdom was much wealthier than the mainland. Even the Ming dynasty couldn't compare to it. There were red corals that were 5 to 6 feet tall, glass, pearls, gold, silver, jade, and porcelain. However, this palace was even more luxurious than the imperial palace. The 3rd princess saw that Chinong was admiring the palace and wanted to please him. She asked someone to bring a few bolts of silk and said gently, "Immortal, you've never been to the sea before. The other treasures are just natural treasures. We have the geographical advantage, so there's nothing to brag about. However, the silk of the mermaid is a rare treasure made by our daughter. It can best show the beauty of the daughters of the mermaid tribe. The silk of the mermaid is not extracted from plants, nor is it made by silkworms. It is made by us mermaids. With our natural ability to control water, we extract water and refine it into true water. With our skillful hands, the finished product is as light as a feather and as soft as a cloud. When worn, it won't be affected by cold or heat. It won't get wet in water or burn in fire. There's a phrase in the Ming dynasty called flawless, which is used to describe our silk of the mermaid." The 3rd princess smiled and said, "Immortal, you've come from afar. Although the sea nation is wealthy, I guess those miscellaneous things won't catch your eye. I have 9 bolts of mermaid silk here, which I made myself. I'll make a Taoist robe for you, Immortal." The 3rd princess was indeed an oddity among the mermaid tribe. She was so eager to learn Tao. She had tried to ask Chinong if he could be her disciple, but he had rejected her politely. However, she could tell from Chunang's tone that he was not unapproachable, so there was no possibility of him rejecting her politely. Thus, she made up her mind and hoped that Chinong would teach her some Dharma spells in the future. Although the third princess was a woman, she had more ideas than her brothers, and her vision was higher than her father's. The other members of the mermaid tribe were still obsessed with money and money, but this princess was already prepared for danger in times of peace. Everyone knew that the mermaid tribe was wealthy, but apart from the natural defense of the sea, they didn't have the corresponding ability to protect themselves. Although the itinerant immortals from overseas had good morals and could ensure the peace of the East Ocean from the disturbances of the evil sects, ever since the third palace, Lord of the Purple Cloud Palace, made friends with all kinds of unorthodox sects, the demons in the East Ocean had become more and more rampant, and sometimes they would invade the great Cheongsi nation. Moreover, the humans on land were exploring the East Ocean, and the number of people on the sea increased day by day. The third princess was always worried that the humans on land would have the intention to invade. She told her father about this, but the upper echelons of the sea nation laughed at her, saying that her worries were groundless. The humans on land didn't have the ability to live underwater, so why would they invade? However, the news from her relatives in the South Ocean told the third princess that this wasn't the case. The red barbarian pirates who had settled in the South Ocean a few hundred years ago had started to invade and kill the mermaids of the South Ocean, robbing their wealth and population. In recent years, they had become more and more offensive. The third princess often advised her father, but her father despised her. She had no choice but to find another way, hoping to become a disciple of a wise master, cultivate good skills, and protect the sea nation. Over the years, she had often made friends with cultivators, hoping that they could help the great Cheongsi nation, but there had been no progress. Therefore, when she saw Chinong today, she was especially respectful, hoping that he could learn some Dharma spells and skills to protect the people of the sea nation. Chinong thought to himself, even if she had fallen into her trap, it was still reasonable. Although Chinong didn't want to take this disciple and let the entire sea nation ride on his coattails, he was also quite sympathetic. He didn't want to let her take advantage of him. Moreover, the great Cheongsi nation was very close to the Purple Cloud Palace, so it was an excellent chess piece. Chapter 438. Chinong closed his eyes and sensed for a while. He opened his sleeves and activated the mana of the heavenly river. With a wave of his hand, the 10 pieces of mermaid silk were kept in his sleeves. The mermaid silk, made from the true water, had a special spirituality. Because of its nature, it was a kind of true water refined by the mermaids. It was the easiest to improve its quality. Chinong only needed to replace any of the 7 types of true water to make a superior spiritual material. However, Chinong didn't care about this. He was more curious about the mermaid's ability to weave. To others, this was the natural supernatural power of the mermaids, but to Chinong it was a kind of knowledge that could be learned. If he could learn to refine water into silk and weave, with the mana of the heavenly river and the ability to refine the 7 types of innate true water, he could weave a spiritual material that was 100 times better than the mermaid's silk. He could even weave it into a talisman that was different from all the talisman refining methods in the world. It was very rare to find a school of its own. Chinong didn't care about other things, but this kind of new thinking and enlightening knowledge could completely arouse his interest. The third princess saw that Chinong was deep in thought with his eyes closed, and his body did not move. After a while, his hands and his sleeves wriggled slightly. After a while, the mermaid's silk shot out from his sleeves. Only then did the third princess turn pale with fright. She had never thought that Chinong would be able to use his bare hands to pull out the thread of water from the mermaid's silk and unravel the seamless silk of the heavenly garment. Tens of millions of water silk hung in the cuffs of Chinong. He then opened his eyes and smiled, so the mermaid's silk has such a deep meaning. The mermaids felt the Tao of heaven and earth, observed the depth of the ocean, and gradually got close to the water spell. In the end, after countless generations of improvement, the The weaving technique was finally close to the waterway, becoming a different kind of water spell. Just a little experience has given me a lot of enlightenment. There is even a trace of the spell to weave all things hidden in it. It is indeed the essence of a racist civilization. It is endless and profound. The mermaids who are proficient in this technique can be called water weavers. Mastering the Tao of water weaving is also close to the Tao. Third princess heard this and said in horror, "It's fine if Celestial Master understands it himself. Don't tell others about the secret of mermaid silk weaving. If so, I will really be the sinner of millions of mermaids." Now, nearly half of the mermaids in our Cheongsi nation rely on silk weaving for a living. The lifeline of our nation is tied to this. Please have mercy, Celestial Master. Seeing her terrified and sincere look, Chin Ong shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry. Even if this method is not a secret, there are not many in the world who can naturally refine true water like you mermaids. At most, a few cultivators can use this to refine a few strange magic treasures. It won't affect the overall situation of your sea nation. Besides, I learned this technique from the mermaid's technique, so I won't harm you. You can rest assured." Chin Ong grabbed the shark silk in his hand. The sparkling and translucent special true water condensed into a thread, bringing with it a dense aura of water essence. Using the heavenly river's arcane power, Chin Ong extracted a large amount of water essence from the surrounding seawater and refined the shark silk. He calculated that the acquired true water, which was derived from the Tying true water and the Tiani true water, was the most suitable for weaving. Refining the mermaid silk with the Gouet water essence would gradually change its nature, turning it into the acquired true water. Its spirituality would be better. The third princess was shocked and thought, "The cultivators of the mystic door are so scary. They are not something a mermaid like me, who is trapped in the four seas, can understand. I used to hear people say that the Ming dynasty is the center of the world, but I didn't think much of it. I thought that the Ming dynasty was richer than the land and that there were only a few poor scholars in the Ming dynasty. Now, I know that we are indeed a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. How arrogant! This immortal is the first person from Middle-earth that I've met. He learned the secret of silk weaving, which has been passed down for thousands of years, with a wave of his hand. He can improve it 10 times better than us. If everyone in Middle-earth is like this, what is the Cheongsi nation?" She became more and more respectful as she thought about it. After Chin Ong finished washing the 10 bolts of the mermaid's silk, he bundled them in his hand. There was a large pile of materials, but in the end there was only less than 1 bundle. It was not that Chin Ong wasted some of the materials, but the fineness of the mermaid's silk became immeasurable after it was washed. Seeing this, the third princess offered to give some more mermaid silk to Chin Ong. She even said, "We may not have enough mermaid silk for now, but there's a lot of mermaid silk, so it won't take us too much effort." "There's no need for that, princess. Don't think that it's just 1 bundle. When it's connected, it won't be a problem to surround the Chixia mountain where I live, even if it doesn't surround the 4 seas. It's just that I haven't started weaving it yet," Chin Ong said with a smile. Then he used the newly learned water weaving technique to weave a water technique from the heavenly river Dharma power into a water caltrip. The water weaving technique was mysterious and unpredictable. It could weave the principles of spells with water, and the finished product would be a Dharma treasure, a physical spell, and a solidified principle, just like how the laws of heaven and earth appeared in natural treasures. It was the fruit of the heavenly Tao that cultivators used their wisdom to imitate. When the final product appeared in Chin Ang's hand, it was a flag. Its brilliance was restrained, and there was nothing special about it. However, the eyes of the third princess, who was watching from the side, lit up. She was also knowledgeable, and she recognized that it was a magical Dharma treasure. The water weaving technique didn't need to start a fire, extract spiritual materials, or wash spirit herbs. After the weaving, it would be a ready-made Dharma treasure. As long as it was refined and nourished in the future, its power would increase. It could be said to be a very convenient Dharma treasure, although it could only make water element Dharma treasures for now. Who knew if Chin'ang would develop it in the future? Moreover, a Dharma treasure with water element was already the most suitable Dharma treasure for mere people. Chin'ang purposely slowed down his speed when he made the Dharma treasure. The third princess was a clever mermaid who was skilled in weaving mermaid silk. She understood at first glance that Chin'ang had intended to succeed. Thinking of this, the third princess knelt on the ground and said in the most respectful manner, "Lingsha, thank you for teaching me this skill." Chin'ang smiled and accepted the bow. After this, Chin'ang's position in the dragon whale changed. From an honorable guest, he became a close teacher of the third princess Lingsha. All his food and clothing were prepared by the third princess herself. Everything was well done. The newly obtained water weaving technique originated from the basic Dharma treasure of the heavenly river. It inherited the true teachings of the heavenly river. When the sky is full of water, the earth is 60% water. Therefore, it was named by Chin'ang as the water weaving technique. It could help the water weaving technique and create the heavenly river. Chin'ang was inspired by the water weaving technique. He was thinking about how to integrate the water weaving technique into the foundation of the heavenly river Dharma power. Just as he was cultivating the heavenly river Dharma power to refine the Dharma treasure flag and verify his research, the huge body of the dragon whale suddenly stopped. It seemed that someone was blocking the way in front of the dragon whale. It was unknown whether it was because the dragon whale was blocked by accident like Chin'ang or someone was here to cause trouble. Chapter 439. Chin'ang frowned and decided to kill him. The Purple Cloud Palace was considered a powerful force in the East Ocean in the eyes of the mermaids. But in Chin'ang's eyes, they were just 3 itinerant immortals born from Tian Yijin's maidservants. They could stay in the Purple Cloud Palace for 500 years because of their fate with Jinmu, but they were destined to face disaster because of their immoral character. Chin'ang couldn't tolerate someone who wasn't even worthy of his sword being so arrogant in front of him. As for this unorthodox disciple who borrowed the prestige of the 3 ladies, he wasn't even qualified to enter Chin'ang's eyes. He was nothing more than a flea. It was only because Chin'ang wanted to test the third princess, Lingsha, that he allowed him to jump around here. Hearing what he said, the third princess, who was standing next to Chin'ang respectfully, became livid. She said angrily, "We don't have many mermaids, and the great Cheongsi nation isn't a vassal of the Purple Cloud Palace. How dare they ask for our people? The daughters of the mermaids are not livestock that can be bought and sold at will. Why are they being humiliated like this?" A mermaid next to her tried to persuade her. "Third princess, the 3 palace masters of the Purple Cloud Palace are powerful cultivators who have achieved the celestial Tao. They also have many powerful sword immortals under their command. They are much more powerful in the East Ocean than the great Cheongsi nation. We can't afford to offend them. They are powerful itinerant immortals who occupy the eye of the East Ocean. It's better to persuade them nicely." How could the third princess not know this? The Purple Cloud Palace was a deity abode of the East Ocean, a top-notch sect among the overseas itinerant immortals. How could a mortal country like the great Cheongsi nation afford to offend them? Even a boy from the Purple Cloud Palace could gain her father's favor, not to mention that someone was holding the talisman of the 3rd palace master of the Purple Cloud Palace. Although the 2 families weren't vassals, the other palace masters and princes of the Sea Nation wouldn't want to offend a deity sect like the Purple Cloud Palace for just 50 mermaids. The person seemed to think so too. Seeing that they didn't reply for a long time, he yelled impatiently, "Stop wasting time! Which prince of the Sea Nation are you? How can you be so unreasonable? Do you know that the 4th prince offered me 10 mermaids with the best voices when he saw me? Our palace master has summoned us this time, but you are to be so late." His words made the 3rd princess tremble with anger. She said while trembling, "Fourth brother, how dare he? How dare he do this? What does he think the daughters of the merfolk kingdom are? Then she swam out from the belly of the dragon whale. Her pretty face was cold, and she was about to scold him. Unexpectedly, when the man saw her, his eyes lit up and a trace of lust flashed across his eyes. Before third princess could speak, he used his mana to transform into a giant hand and grabbed her. He even muttered, "I think this mermaid is not bad looking. Let's make it up to her. I don't need you to take care of me. The third palace master's banquet is in a rush. I've already gathered more than 30 people from your merfolk village. Just give me another 20. Chin of. He sneered. Watch your skin. Though the third princess had been studying the water-weaving method created by Chenong for the past few days and had made some progress, her mana was still weak. She only had time to weave a cocoon with the thread of real water to protect herself, but she was caught by the big hand formed by the man's mana. He was so anxious that the mermaid who was accompanying him on patrol shouted, Immortal Elder, you've got the wrong person. That's the third princess of the Sea Nation." The man stepping on the jade fire turned a deaf ear to her words. When the noble lady gathered 20 people to exchange for her princess, he would capture all of them and leave. The noblewoman had no choice but to beg Chenong, "Immortal Elder, please save our princess. The mermaids that the Xian Palace wanted to offer to the Decheong Sea Nation have never been released. Furthermore, the people that the 3 palace masters befriended are not decent cultivators. If our princess goes there, she will definitely suffer. Immortal Elder, please save her for the sake of the princess' hospitality over the past few days." Chenong said lightly, "Oh, then why didn't you ask me to help in the beginning? It wouldn't have been difficult for me to get rid of him then. But if I were to help now, I would be afraid of harming the innocent." The noblewoman was so anxious that her forehead was full of sweat. She quickly explained, "It's not that we don't believe in Immortal Elder's abilities, but the Decheong Sea Nation is weak and can't afford to offend Immortal Elder from the Xian Palace." Furthermore, before she could explain, Chenong had already activated his sword art, and the 12 elemental waterscape swords floated behind his head. The 12 elemental waterscape swords were a metal and water dharma artifact, and the sword gleam was also the color of water. It was very inconspicuous in the sea, but it had a similar effect to the great pure invisible sword. However, even if the sword gleam was 10 times or 100 times more conspicuous, the person that Chenong's sword gleam would not be able to react. This was because this sword artifact was already one of the best flying swords in the world, and Chenong's swordsmanship was also one of the best in the world. Everything had happened too quickly. In the eyes of the noblewoman beside Chenong, it had only been a flash of light behind Chenong's head, and the man who was controlling the jade fire had been killed with a single strike. Even his soul had not been able to escape. The jade fire protecting his body had been forcefully slashed open, and only then did they see the sword gleam. Chenong retracted the sword gleam and merged it with the 11 halos behind his head. Only then did he ask lightly, "Then, can you still bear the crime now?" The noblewoman opened her mouth, but she couldn't say anything. She didn't dare to speak any more. Chenong had always been humble and polite on the dragon whale. He looked like a righteous, young, and handsome man, which had given them some false impressions. Now, Chenong had corrected this false impression. He revealed his indifferent and determined nature and killed the Purple Cloud Palace's emissary, who was unreachable in their hearts, with a single strike. Even if they were 10 times more afraid of the Purple Cloud Palace's power, they didn't dare to say anything at this time. As if from another standpoint, she asked, "They don't dare to offend the Purple Cloud Palace, but do they dare to offend Chenong?" At this time, the third princess finally broke free from the true water cocoon and picked up the 100 treasures pouch that the person had dropped. With a pale face, she came before Chenong and bowed. "Ling Sha thanks teacher for saving me. If not for teacher, Ling Sha would have been in trouble this time." Chenong said lightly, Aren't you worried that I killed the Purple Cloud Palace's emissary and brought you trouble? Although the third princess's face was pale, she still dared to look into Chunang's eyes and said firmly, "If we're talking about trouble, it's because I didn't handle it well and brought trouble to the people of the Sea Nation." The third princess knew very well that Chinong and the Purple Cloud Palace were people that the great Cheong Sea Nation couldn't afford to offend. Should she not stand on the side of Chinong, who was protecting her, and instead curry favor with the Purple Cloud Palace, who already looked down on her? She had to make the right choice, be it from a rational or utilitarian point of view. The body of the person who stepped on the green fire fell onto the green fire and was burned to ashes. Only the talisman in his hand didn't melt. Instead, it emitted a bright light and flew up. An angry female voice came from it. "Who dared to kill my emissary? How dare you disrespect the 3 phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace?" The talisman reached down and was about to absorb Chin-Ang's aura. Chun-Ong only sneered and flicked a sword energy with his finger. It pierced into the talisman along with the sword aura from the water scenery sword. Chapter 440. This time, the 3 phoenixes sent their disciples out to ask for some mermaids and to entertain 2 of their good friends. They were Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, and Ancestor Shinkong's disciple, Elder Lingwei. Su Feinyang also brought a few people from the side schools for the 3 phoenixes to get to know, including Peach Blossom Fairy Li Yuyu, Lai Guai Tuchuo, and Sea Swallow Lang Shaoxian. She was injured, so her complexion wasn't very good. However, Su Feinyang noticed it and asked, "Did Palace Mistress encounter any difficulties? You don't look too good. If there are any difficulties, I might be able to help." Sanfeng was originally very concerned about her reputation and would never allow herself to lose so much face in front of Su Feinyang. However, she was truly furious and knew that Chun-Ang's abilities were far from what she could handle alone. Thus she said to Su Feinyang, "Someone just killed my emissary and even ambushed me, causing me some injuries. I'm afraid he is a demon who covets our Purple Cloud Palace. I will not let him go." Su Feinyang knew the 3 phoenixes' temperament and knew that they were hiding a lot of things. She used her clever tongue to get the truth out of them. She connected the dots and guessed what the 3 phoenixes were unwilling to talk about and got it right. Su Feinyang was the most quick-witted person. How could she be willing to seek revenge for the 3 phoenixes? She thought to herself, to be able to injure someone from 1,000 miles away with a sword aura and injure the 3 phoenixes, this person's cultivation must not be weak. If not for the aura of the talisman, Fang Sanfeng would have been killed by this person. Wu Tai Sek's calamity is not over yet. We must not provoke such a strong enemy. Not only can we not help the 3 phoenixes, we must also do them a favor. In the future, when I fight a Mei, it will be great if there is such a hindrance. However, it is better to give help in a time of need than to add flowers to a brocade. Why don't I give an idea to the 3 phoenixes and let her trap that person? I can use this opportunity to do him a favor. She made up her mind and told the 3 phoenixes that person's spells and supernatural powers are powerful. If we fight with him, even if we win, there is nothing we can do. Why don't we lure him into the divine sand formation and trap him with the formation? At that time, won't I be at your mercy? Although Sanfeng was hesitant, she knew that Chu Feng had set up the great divine sand formation to defend against external enemies. If Chu Feng found out that she was using it to frame the enemy, she would definitely blame her for being a busybody. But in the end, she was still angry. She thought that when the time came, she would kill the enemy in the formation first and lie to Chu Feng that he had come to break the rules. Thus, he made up his mind and began to plan. A few unorthodox disciples did not even have the time to curry favor with her, so they came up with many evil plans to help her. Only Ling Weisho felt that it was inappropriate, but on account of their friendship, he did not say anything to stop her. Chun-Ong had killed the emissary of the Purple Cloud Palace. The other people on the Dragon Whale did not dare to criticize him, but they were still afraid of the prestige of the Purple Cloud Palace. Normally, they were scared and kept a distance from Chenong. They no longer tried to curry favor with him. Only the third princess knew that they were still close to each other. The Purple Cloud Palace was rich in resources. Jasper flowers and herbs were planted everywhere, Ganoderma trees, as well as rare elixirs such as jade nectar, banana mammoth paste, jade cherry purple marrow. The emissary was very respected in front of the third phoenix. His 100 treasures pouch was rich in elixirs and countless extravagant tools. However, Chenong did not care about these things at all. Among the things that he was interested in, the earthly fortress divine abode in the Purple Cloud Palace was one of them. The heavenly true water that could help him refine his mana was another, and the treasures of the other, golden mothers and loose immortals, could only be counted as half of them. This half of it was even counted as a secret treasure that could withstand the heavenly wind and tribulation fire among the treasures. The rest were like rubble that he did not have to worry about. The third princess had encountered a disaster. She remembered her fear and helplessness when she was taken away. Other than the water-weaving technique that Chenong taught her, her status and power were completely useless. She immediately understood the principle of constantly improving herself and took a step forward in her heart of Tao. She knew how afraid her father and brother were of the Purple Cloud Palace. So she changed the direction of the dragon whale and went to the territory of one of her sisters. She was even more respectful to Chenong on the way. She took the elixirs and rare elixirs stored in the dragon whale to please Chenong. On the dragon whale, Chenong rarely went out because of the difference between men and women. He only cultivated his mana in the soft bag that he lived in. Since he came to Donghai, he had also overcome the last restriction of the Milky Way's mana. He refined 43 drops of Tani water in 10 days, and his mana had another change. Now, the Milky Way's mana had refined 2 types of water. Although it had not been transformed yet, because of the short period of time, it had improved a lot. After cultivating in the sea for 10 days, the progress of the Tani water was almost as good as the result of the 5 months of cultivating the Tain water. It was only then that Chenong truly understood the difference in the influence of the place of cultivation. He thought to himself, "This difference is more than 10 times. It seems that if I want to achieve great success in the Milky Way's mana, the 7 types of water must be refined in the most suitable environment. The Tani water is still fine, as it is the accumulation of the essence of all water. It will be fine as long as it is a place with sufficient water essence. Donghai is quite suitable for my cultivation. Why don't I also open a residence in the sea? Not only will I have a place to stay, I won't have to wander around. Not only will it be inconvenient for cultivation, but it will also be inconvenient for me to conduct research and plant elixirs and rare herbs. In the future, if I don't stay in the sea for long, I can pass it down to my disciples in this world. It can be considered as leaving some assets for them." With this thought, Chenong started to consider it. Purple Cloud Palace was originally a very suitable place, but the 3 owners of this immortal manor were all closely related to Amei. As the residence of Master Lianshan, it was the old residence of Mother Earth 1,000 years ago. Mother Earth had gifted Purple Cloud Palace to Taoist, long-browed Taoist, and left a message in the crystal pillar explaining that the original owner of this manor, Mother Heaven Jean, had also left Purple Cloud Palace to Taoist, long-browed Taoist due to a favor. This was a house that was considered to be under Amei's ownership. Even though the 3 women of Purple Cloud Palace had a relationship with Purple Cloud Palace for 500 years due to their relationship as maids under Mother Heaven, the ownership was clear. If it wasn't for Amei's cowardice and not being open and above board in their actions, they wouldn't have been criticized by others. For example, there was a courtyard house in Beijing. Amei's ownership was the old owner, but due to some matters, the house was occupied by the servants of the previous owner. After the liquidation was completed, you could just take the house ownership certificate to ask for it back. If there was a dispute, you could go to court for a lawsuit, sword fight. You could just ask for the house back. However, they sent their own children to borrow soy sauce. After they were slighted, they barged in. Because someone had ulterior motives and wanted to plot against them, they broke one of the cat's legs. In the end, the two families had a falling out, and the house was taken back. Even though it was reasonable, it was not the right way. This kind of ownership was not clear. Not only were there people who didn't have ownership, but there were also people who had ownership of the house. Chun-Ong just wanted to have a foundation in the neutral sea, so he would never get involved in such trouble. Not to mention that Mother Heaven was still in the heaven realm and hadn't crossed the tribulation yet. The original owner of the house was still there. If he didn't want to get involved in karma, it was better to hide as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be like Lien Shan, who had to use his lost body and hidden treasures to offset karma. In the human world, the ownership of this house was not clear, but in Mother Heaven, karma was extremely clear. Lien Shan and Mother Heaven were tenants who borrowed the name of a May to live here. Later, they left behind a bunch of hidden treasures on Moon Island as rent. Because of their previous friendship, the three women of Purple Cloud Palace temporarily lived here for 500 years. Qi Lingyun and the others, who had crossed the tribulation, were disciples of a May. Moreover, with the promise from Long Brow Immortal, they were the owners of the immortal mansion. Chun-Ong understood this karma. As long as he didn't want to get involved with Mother Heaven, he shouldn't have any ideas about the immortal mansion, unless he could take Qi Lingyun and the others as his disciples, or simply find the reincarnations of Mother Heaven and the 5 daughters of the past and take them as his disciples. He wouldn't be able to compete with a May for the ownership of the immortal mansion. It was so complicated. Chun-Ong was not any weaker than Mother Heaven, so why didn't he open another immortal mansion? Even though he needed to spend some time to manage it, it was better than participating in countless entanglements. Moreover, some of Chun-Ang's laboratories needed to be modified by himself. Purple Cloud Palace might not be more convenient than his newly opened immortal mansion. Why should he get involved in this? In the ocean, there were earth veins and water veins. On the land, the mountains and rivers were shaped like dragon veins. Most of them were spiritual mountains and blessed lands. In the ocean, there were earth veins and water veins. The earth veins were different. If the earth veins were not spiritual mountains under the sea, there would be underwater canyons, islands, and rocks. For example, Sienkong Island and algae fishing. Chapter 441. In the past few days, Chun-Ong had also observed some of the underwater earth veins and slowly deduced the East Sea's water veins and earth veins. He had a plan in mind and thought, there are 2 or 3 places in the East Sea that have all the earth veins and water veins like the Purple Cloud Palace, but most of them are occupied by the itinerant immortals of the East Sea. I'm not the only one in the world who knows how to look at the geomancy of the sea. There are also some itinerant immortals overseas who have a long history. So why wouldn't they occupy them? However, there are still 2 places that are empty. The remaining places are either occupied by evil beasts or evil spiritual energy. There is no place for creation. I think the cold spring in the South Sea is fine, although there are a group of 3-star beauty phantoms. This place is spacious and there is a cold spring. It is the most suitable place for me to practice. Not only can I refine the Tianyi True Water, but I can also refine the Xianming True Water. Otherwise, I will have to open a cave abode in the North and South Poles. Although the sea I was far away in the South Sea, it was near the shore and not far from the East Sea. Chun-Ong was heading to the South Sea, so he could go there. As for the 3-star beauty phantoms, Chun-Ong had his own place for them. If they were ordinary evil beasts, it would be fine to get rid of them. However, there were many of these 1,000-year-old beauty phantoms, and they were very intelligent. They hid in the sea all year round and did not fight with others. They only used their inner cores to absorb the cold air in the sea eye's cold spring and refine the inner cores with the essence of the enigmatic mother. They had the merit of suppressing the cold spring and preventing the South Sea from freezing. Killing them would hurt the harmony of the world, so Chun-Ong could not bear to do it. Although taking the enigmatic matriarch essence from the beauty puppet's inner core could help Chenong refine the nether true water. Chenong was not willing to ruin the lives of this group of beasts that stood aloof from worldly affairs for a moment of pleasure. He could also take them in as his disciples and test subjects for Chenong to practice yin and yang, transform into all things, and explore the path of creation. He asked the third princess to change the course of the dragon whale to the South Sea, while he continued to cultivate the heavenly river, dharmic power, and increase the Tiani true water. The third princess naturally obeyed Chenong's order. However, when she turned around, she secretly sent someone to tell her sisters the location of the dragon whale. A few days later, a mermaid secretly boarded the dragon whale and met up with her. This mermaid was one of her best friends. The two of them had once agreed to leave the sea to seek immortality together. Although they were unable to set off for some reason, they still missed each other. Now that they had the chance to become immortals, they couldn't help but want to share it with their sister. Chenong was right about her. He knew that the third princess was a sentimental person and couldn't be as heartless as a cultivator. That was why he didn't agree the first time. He didn't want the entire Great Cheongsi nation to drag him down. He knew about the third princess's actions, but he turned a blind eye and pretended that he didn't know anything. One day, Chenong deduced another magical effect of the Tiani true water that he had just cultivated. He was in a good mood because his understanding of the true water had improved. The third princess was very perceptive. Seeing that Chenong was interested, she took the opportunity to kneel on the ground and begged, "Teacher taught me the water weaving technique. I kowtowed in fear to thank you and didn't dare to have greedy thoughts. However, I've always been envious of the foundation of the mystic door. I want to be greedy and ask teacher to teach me the foundation so that I can have the hope of becoming an immortal. Teacher, please take pity on me and teach me the right path." After saying that, she kowtowed on the ground and begged. Chenong saw that she was determined to pursue Tao and sighed in his heart. "I wanted to teach you the Dharma spell to defend yourself and defeat enemies because of our fate. I hoped that you would be safe and enjoy the riches of the Sea Nation. However, you are biased towards the Tao. How can the Tao be obtained so easily? If you become my lab rat, you will have the hope of achieving Tao and ascending to immortality in the future. However, if you are not careful, your soul will be destroyed. Why bother?" He said bluntly, "Do you know that the fundamental path of mana is different from spells? There are many difficulties and obstacles, such as the Great Trial of Immortals every 500 years, the Great Trial of Earth Immortals every 2,000 years, and the Great Trial of Time Sequence of 4999, etc. Even if you cultivate Tao alone, you'll have to face the internal tribulation of wind and fire and the dangerous external tribulation of devil, the tribulation of love, the tribulation of swords and weapons, and the tribulation of evil karma. Those who can achieve the right path are rare even in the orthodox mystic door, and it is rare to see one in 100 years in the unorthodox sections. With the water weaving technique that I taught you, you have the ability to be free and unfettered. With your age, it is not difficult for you to enjoy 300 years of wealth. Many people in the unorthodox sects do not live as long as you, not to mention the many hardships that cultivators have to go through. They live in fear and are exhausted. They are not as free as you. Let me tell you the truth. Do you still want to beg?" Chenong questioned, "If you know when to advance and when to retreat, I will give you the treasure of true water for the sake of our friendship. You can use it to capture and kill those demons. If you continue to cry and beg, you will have to go through a lot of training. If you are not careful, you will lose your life, let alone the fate of master and disciple." Third Princess Ling Sha heard him and quickly said, "Teacher, Ling Sha does not want to be free and unfettered. I only want the right path for eternity. In this way, I am not afraid of all the hardships. I only ask for your mercy." Chenong heaved a long sigh and said, "Fine, fine. Since you have made up your mind, I will teach you the 24 solar terms guiding chart and a refining method of a true water vessel. First, you will be my nominal disciple. When you have completed the 24 solar terms guiding chart and successfully refined the light age cold painting that I have taught you, come to me to teach you all the one sky water true form painting and become an outer disciple. Chun-Ong snapped his fingers, and a spiritual light flew out from his sleeve and imprinted on the top of her head. He then touched the mermaid's silk next to her, and a drop of Xianming true water instantly refined it. Each strand was like ice silk. Chun-Ong used the water-weaving technique to make it into a jade silk vessel and gave it to Third Princess to practice. In the future, Third Princess would probably be a lab rat for Chun-Ong to deduce the mystery of Xianming true water. It was also because of Chun-Ang's benevolence that, in consideration of her past respect, he didn't make her like Wang Ming, who had to try out the most dangerous demonic arts. Instead, like Li Ning and the other two, she was given the cushy task of being the 7 true water trial mice. The younger sisters of the Third Princess were dumbfounded. They watched as the artifact of the light Ji-Hunta stretched slightly in midair, for to 500 feet under the sea. It actually summoned a snowflake that slowly swept over a radius of more than 100 feet. The mermaid race had countless treasures, but the only one that could be considered a Dharma treasure was a bracelet that the Mermaid King had collected. He had used many treasures from the great Cheong Kingdom to please an itinerant immortal who came to look for medicine, and he had obtained it. It was a Dharma treasure that was used by women. He wore it on his wrist and never took it off. Even so, countless princesses of the Sea Kingdom coveted it. Even some princes were as shameless as the Mermaid King and wanted to get their hands on it. Someone like the Third Princess, who was not favored by the Mermaid King, did not even need to think about it. Even if she was the Mermaid King's favorite concubine or concubine, he would only be able to borrow her for a night if he liked her. Even Chun-Ong was considered a Taoist with many treasures, not to mention the Amei disciples. He was extremely generous. The mermaid watched as the Third Princess happily put away the Dharma treasure embryo and looked at Chun-Ong with a burning gaze. Before she could think of an excuse to speak, she was interrupted by a shout. Someone barged in and shouted, "Third sister, did you offend the immortal master of the Purple Cloud Palace? How dare you? Why aren't you apologizing to me now? Do you know how much trouble it will bring to the Sea Kingdom if you offend an immortal sect like the Purple Cloud Palace?" Chapter 442. The fourth prince of the great Cheong Sea nation's face darkened, and he said coldly, "How dare you talk back? You can't even afford to let go of such a small matter. The Purple Cloud Palace is very important to the great Cheong Sea nation. If they are willing to protect us and even teach us a few techniques to live forever, let alone a few mermaids, even you princesses would be willing to do so, let alone the servants." The fourth prince sneered. "Don't say that I don't take care of you. If father finds out, you won't be able to protect yourself. If the 3 palace lords of the Purple Cloud Palace are still angry and insist that you go to the palace to be a plaything, father will definitely agree." The third princess was so angry that her lips trembled. What she couldn't accept the most was not the fourth prince's words, but a fact that she couldn't accept, based on her understanding of the king of the merfolk. What her fourth brother said was very likely to happen. The third princess's heart was filled with anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. It was as if a jar of vinegar had been knocked over, and the expression in her eyes was complicated and indescribable. Chun-Ong listened to them. He naturally didn't care about the messy family affairs of the merfolk royal family. He was thinking more deeply. The merfolk kingdom's affairs were at most the aftermath of the conflict between Chun-Ong and the Purple Cloud Palace. The real decisive factor was never in their control, not even in the Purple Cloud Palace's control, but in Chun-Ang's hands. Currently, only Chun-Ong, the 3 phoenixes, and the mermaids on the dragon whale knew that Chun-Ong had killed the people of the Purple Cloud Palace. Now that the fourth prince of the merfolk kingdom had found out about it and came looking for them, he didn't seem to know the inside story. Under Chunang's watch, the mermaids on the dragon whale naturally couldn't spread the news. Therefore, it was obvious how the fourth prince had gotten the news. Only the 3 phoenixes could have leaked it. In this way, they could vaguely see the tale of the 3 phoenixes' plan. The fourth prince of the Sea Kingdom looked at the third princess and said coldly, "We're siblings, and I can't bear to see you end up like that. Let me mediate in the middle, and this matter may be resolved. Listen carefully. Although the Purple Cloud Palace has 3 palace lords, they cultivate in seclusion all year round. Aunt Dong Xiao is the one who manages the palace affairs. If you can please her, she'll make up for this small mistake." The third princess listened to him boasting and sneered in her heart. How can a mere Dong Xiao turn the tables on what my master did? So what if she had the backing of the third palace lord? Shizhen slashed her with his sword, but she didn't dare to come over to take revenge. Instead, it was you who rushed ahead. Even if he is scheming, so what if he is favored by father? Master didn't need to look at anyone's face, nor did he need to rely on anything. But who would dare to look down on him? In the past, I have seen many benefits of power and wealth in the Sea Nation. With a single order, countless people would become my wings and be at my beck and call. Only today did I realize that the freedom of a Taoist cultivator far surpasses that. Endless wealth and earth-shattering power, but after hundreds of years, they will turn into a handful of dust. Only like the bright moon in the sea, eternal and inextinguishable, free and unrestrained, is the result that I pursue. He then heard the fourth prince nagging. I have some friendship with a few immortal masters of the Purple Cloud Palace. They are all people who have a say in front of Aunt Dong Xiao. As long as you give them some benefits and follow me to make some arrangements, you'll definitely be able to get an audience with her. Aunt Dong Xiao is a good person. If you behave in front of her, you may not be unable to get through this. The third princess smiled slightly and said, "Enough, fourth brother." She smiled brightly, revealing a very moving smile. The fourth prince was stunned, not knowing what had happened to her. He only heard the third princess say with a smile, "Fourth brother only knows that I offended the Purple Cloud Palace. But do you know how I became enemies with them?" She straightened 2 fingers on her right hand into the shape of a sword and gestured in front of him. She chuckled softly and said, "That emissary saw that I looked good and wanted to take me away. Coincidentally, my Shizhen was right beside me, so I killed him with a sword." She gestured at her neck with her right hand and said fiercely. After that, she wrinkled her nose proudly. Seeing the fourth prince's dumbfounded expression, he laughed even louder and said, "After that, the third palace mistress of the Purple Cloud Palace flew to Fu Zhao to denounce her, but my teacher stabbed her in the heart from 1,000 miles away. I reckon that she still hasn't recovered yet. Fourth elder brother, do you still want me to apologize?" After that, he ignored him and bowed in front of Chenong. "Does Shizhen have any instructions?" At this moment, the fourth prince finally noticed Chenong. When he heard the third princess's words, his expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "You are just a lone, loose cultivator. How dare you provoke such a powerful force like the Purple Cloud Palace? So what if your magic power is stronger than the third palace lord? The Purple Cloud Palace still has 2 palace lords, and their magic power is even more powerful. They also have many good friends and countless immortals. How can you resist them alone? Didn't you implicate the Sea Nation? Third sister, don't be stubborn." His words were sincere and very anxious. Chenong laughed and said to the third princess, "Let's go, disciple. I'll bring you to see the Purple Cloud Palace's lineup. I'll let you know the basic principles of a cultivator, in case you become like the Purple Cloud Palace in the future, having the delusion that there is strength in numbers and protecting a large number of disciples and disciples in the future, provoking a killer like Li Yingqiong and having your entire family destroyed with a sword. It will be a disgrace to me. In that case, I might as well send you to the tribulation personally." At this point, Chen Ong sneered and said, "There is strength in numbers. If you don't use the right method, you will only be like a large group of small fish, becoming food for others." After saying that, he waved his sleeves and took the third princess to his side. He also brought the fourth prince into the sword gleam and instructed the others, "You guys set up camp here for the time being. I'll be back soon." Then he leaped onto the sword gleam and headed in the direction of the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, the three phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace did not alarm the two sisters. They quietly calculated and prepared many strategies. With the help of a few people from the side sects, they came up with many cunning and vicious plans. The fourth prince of the great Cheongsi nation was part of their plan. Originally, they had calculated that regardless of whether Chenong was afraid of the prestige of the Purple Cloud Palace or not, he would still follow the fourth prince to the Purple Cloud Palace. Then, there were many secret plans. For example, they plotted against the third princess and made her suffer from a poison curse that could only be alleviated by the Purple Cloud Palace's elixirs. Or they directly kidnapped the third princess to the Purple Cloud Palace. Or they used the people of the Mermaid Sea Nation to threaten Chenong and force him to go to the Purple Cloud Palace, no matter what. However, Chenong was not in the mood to play these games with them. He silently used his primordial spirit to calculate and locked onto their auras. He did not even use his mental strength to calculate those plans and poison Kata did. Instead, he guided the fate of those people from the side sects and triggered the tribulation in advance. He made himself their external tribulation and determined their fate to face the tribulation. Chapter 443. Apart from Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, and San Feng, who were plotting against Chenong, the unorthodox figures were all at the entrance of Purple Cloud Palace, at the entrance of the 3,000 Li Divine Sand Formation, welcoming Immortals Island. There were also two disciples of Purple Cloud Palace standing guard there. One was Yang Li, who had disguised herself as Wei Rong and was hiding in Purple Cloud Palace to rescue Lu Rongbua. The other was Wu Fan. Originally, apart from Su Feinyang, who was quick-witted and knew how powerful Chenong was, the rest did not pay much attention to him. Taking advantage of Su Feinyang's absence, the monk sneered, "He's just an ordinary itinerant immortal. Yet Feinyang values him so much. I know all the powerful figures in the Central Plains and overseas, but I've never heard of this Chenong. If it were up to me, I would have taken the black sandbag and ambushed him. I could have taken his head with a shovel. Why bother using this divine sand formation?" Peach Blossom Fairy Liu covered her mouth and laughed. Fairy Lady is a cautious person and has her own plans. Moreover, Third Palace Master did not object. Back then, you didn't volunteer yourself, but now you're boasting in front of me. Looking at her seductive appearance, the head monk with Lai Guai was lustful. Holding the crescent moon's shovel upside down, he shouted, "By fending the Sangong Zhu, he is seeking his own death." How formidable is that Zhen Hai? The Yin fire pouch can burn mountains and boil seas, and the power of the husband and wife can shake the entire southern sea. Wasn't such a powerful figure eliminated by Third Palace Master? That Chenong is only a third-rate sword immortal. He might not even be able to block my shovel. Just watch. I'll most likely be able to take his life this time. It was not because the monk was careless, but because the three phoenixes felt that they had lost face. They covered up the process of Chenong injuring her in every possible way. He was not a clever person like Su Feinyang, so naturally he could not tell how powerful Chenong was. Moreover, there were only a limited number of cultivators in the world. A powerful figure had cultivated for hundreds of years or several lifetimes and was already known to the world. There had never been a freak like Chenong who suddenly emerged from the ground in the name of a senior who had reversed the calamity. It was no wonder that he was careless. Over here, Lai Guai Tuchao was plotting something bad. He desperately bragged to Li Yu, saying that Chenang's arrival was also because of his bag of divine sand. He also said that Su Feinyang's action was unnecessary, that Chenong was not his match at all. After bragging for too long, it was easy to see ghosts. At this time, a sentence was heard by everyone on the island. "Fellow Taoists, have you made up your mind to make things difficult for me?" The unorthodox school was in an uproar. They looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Chin Ong emerging from the surface of the sea on a sword light. He stopped in midair above the island and asked the people below with a stern expression. Chin Ong brought his disciple and fourth prince here not to resolve this misunderstanding. He only asked the people below out of politeness. After all, the heavens had the virtue of cherishing all living things. Even if they sent him a killing tribulation with no chance of survival, there should still be a slim chance of survival. If there were people below who were merciful, so what if they were spared? Unfortunately, there was no one. The people below looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Only the monk with the crutch laughed and said, "Heaven had a path, but you didn't take it. There was no door to hell, but you came. Do you think killing a rough disciple of Xian Palace is considered a skill? Which one of us here doesn't have magic power 10 times stronger than you? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You're courting death." Originally, the monk with the crutch was still a little apprehensive. Now that Chin Ong was standing in front of him, he thought he could see through him. He wasn't even an itinerant immortal, so why would he have any scruples? In Xian Palace, even a servant, Lu Rongbua, had an itinerant immortal's fruit of way. Even though Chin Ong was a top swordsman below an itinerant immortal, there were more than 3 people on the island who had an itinerant immortal's fruit of way. No matter what, he didn't think he needed to be careful or worried. The other unorthodox school people were very cautious at first, but when they saw Chin Ong like this, they felt at ease. Li Yuyu stretched out her hand to stop the monk with the crutch, who was itching to try. She covered her mouth, and her eyes were half opened with a seductive look. She didn't think much of Chin Ong at all. She only took it as a joke and said with a smile, "If I insist on making things difficult for you, what can you do, little brother?" Chin Ong nodded slightly and said again, "I'm here to resolve this cause and effect. If we cultivators can't resolve the cause and effect itself, then we'll resolve the person who caused it. I'll kill all of you, and it'll be considered over for me." His words made the unorthodox school's sword immortals on the island laugh out loud. Only the fourth prince was a clever person. When he heard the murderous intent in Chen Ang's words, his expression changed slightly. He said, "This is the Xian Palace's place to welcome guests, and also the entrance to the immortal abode. You can't behave atrociously here. What's the big deal?" Chin Ong asked in return. The 12 Moons waterscape sword beside him had already split into 3 sword gleams. Peach Blossom Fairy Li Yuyu smiled coquettishly, and a pink miasma rose from her body. She stepped on the miasma and hid behind the monk with the crutch. A peach blossom flying knife flashed on her body, and she was about to chop off Chin Ang's head. However, the waterscape sword gleam was silent and spread out like a soft cloud. It was long and flexible, and it was extremely flexible. The Peach Blossom 7 Demons enchanting net that flew out of Peach Blossom Fairy Nun's body not only couldn't wrap around the flying sword, but it also split into thousands of pieces and passed through the eye of the net like a cloud. The 2 flying swords were like horns, and they were connected from head to tail. The Peach Blossom flying knife and the Peach Blossom 7 Demons enchanting net were cut into pieces by the sword gleam. They lost their spiritual chi and fell down like ordinary iron. Li Yuyu's expression suddenly changed. When she saw the sword gleam turn again, she hurriedly pushed the monk with the crutch in front of her out to block the disaster. Even though Chin Ong wasn't serious, the sword gleam wasn't something that a few loose immortals of unorthodox level could withstand. In his confusion, the monk with the crutch was killed by the sword gleam before he could even use the treasured weapon in his hand. Li Yu didn't even manage to escape 3 steps before she was cut into 2 by another sword gleam. She didn't even have the chance to pull out her primordial spirit. As the abandoned disciple of the Red Body cult's Granny Jiopan, She didn't even have the chance to use 30% of her abilities in front of Chenong before she died a violent death. Chenong didn't even spare a glance at the other loose immortal from unorthodox level Lang Shaoxian. With a swish of the sword gleam, he was sent to meet his doom. Wu Pan was originally fawning on them, but when he saw their end, he was scared out of his wits. He screamed and fled toward the holy sand formation behind him. It would have been better if he hadn't moved, but once he moved, the sword gleam in the air changed and killed him as well. Only Yang Li, who didn't want to mingle with these unorthodox cultivators, stayed far away from them and escaped the disaster. He originally thought that it was a senior from the righteous path, so he wanted to secretly inform Chenong about the unorthodox plot. However, after witnessing Chenang's murderous nature, he didn't have the thought of meeting this senior from the righteous path anymore. Instead, he tried his best to hide himself, afraid that this senior would kill him and Lu Rongbua as well when he got excited. The fourth merman prince watched Chenang's sword gleam rise and fall, and his killing was decisive. He didn't know the cultivation level of these people, but he thought they were the servants of the Purple Cloud Palace. He murmured, "How dare you do this? You've brought trouble to us mermaids. You showed off your power at the entrance of the Purple Cloud Palace. Even if we let you escape, there are many powerful immortals in the Purple Cloud Palace. How could they let us, the Decheongsi nation? It's over, it's over. If the Grand Palace Master of the Purple Cloud Palace comes out from seclusion, you won't be able to escape." Chenang's sword gleam flowed through the immortal Yingzhen Island like flowing water, forcing out a dim sword gleam that flew into the air and escaped. It affected Chenang's sword gleam. Someone inside shouted, "Qin Daoyu, I didn't make things difficult for you. I didn't agree with their plot at all. I'm Ling Weisho, a disciple of the Xiankong Island's patriarch. Please spare my life for the sake of my patriarch. I won't make things difficult for you anymore. Please spare me." Chapter 444. From the moment Chenong landed on the welcoming deity island, many people in the Purple Cloud Palace knew about it. However, First Phoenix was cultivating in seclusion, so all the affairs in the palace were managed by the two palace lords. Second Phoenix was someone who didn't pay attention, so the person in charge of the Purple Cloud Palace was Third Phoenix and Third Palace Lord. Chenong was ordered by Third Palace Master. How could the rest of the people dare to interfere in the fight between the itinerant immortals of the unorthodox sects on the island? Therefore, they only used the talisman to inform Sanfeng. They didn't dare to tell Sanfeng, Jin Shunu, and the others. Moreover, other than Lu Rongbua, Yang Li, and Long Lizi, who had a good temperament, the rest of the people in the Purple Cloud Palace were arrogant and looked down on the itinerant cultivators from overseas. Later on, when Chun Dan killed people as if he was chopping vegetables, his methods were incomparably cruel. Even an unorthodox expert like Ling Wei so had to beg for mercy. Only then did these people realize how powerful he was. Lu Rongbua was quick-witted. Although she was worried about Yan Li's safety on the immortal welcoming island, she also knew that it was best to go to the golden-bearded slave at this time. Therefore, she quietly went to the golden-bearded slave while others were not paying attention. The others were just panicking and waiting for Sanfeng to come back. The most decisive one was to use the passage of the divine San to provoke Chenong, trying to trick him into going in to make a contribution. The scenery on Yingzhen Island was beautiful. Chenong landed in the courtyard of the island with the third princess and the fourth prince. Seeing that the fourth prince was still stretching his neck and waiting for death, he asked his female disciple with a smile, "Does your fourth brother have a name?" Before Princess Ling Sha could answer, fourth prince said coldly, "My name is Jiaoli. You Taoists think you're brave, but you don't know your place. The sea is vast. If you leave with my third sister now, you still have a chance to live. If you delay any longer, no one in the 4 seas of the divine continent can save you." Chenong just smiled and asked curiously, "Why do you say no one in the 4 seas of the divine continent can save me?" Even though Purple Cloud Palace is powerful, she can still intimidate us in the East Sea. How can she make things difficult for me in the prosperous land of the divine continent? Prince Jiao, Li sneered. You really are an ignorant country bumpkin from the great Ming dynasty. I know there's a saying in the Central Plains called arrogance. You are quite similar to this. How many experts could there be in the Central Plains? Those so-called famous experts in the Southern Sea were nothing more than people from the school of miscellany. I've also entertained a few Taoists from the Central Plains. Maishan Orthodox lineage or Mao Shan lineage. They're just third-rate itinerant cultivators in East Sea. They only know some illusory spells and miscellaneous spells. You're invincible among these people and they flatter you. Do you think that the Eastern Sea can let you run wild? Do you think you are a loose immortal? Even if you are a loose immortal Taoist. Do you know how many immortal swordsmen there are in this Purple Cloud Palace? Do you know how many of the immortal elders who come and go are itinerant immortals? The 3 palace lords were all itinerant immortals, the number 1 sect of the 4 seas, much stronger than the Central Plains. You've just arrived, so you don't even know this. How dare you kill people at their doorstep? Prince Jiao Li's words were heart-wrenching, as if he was weeping blood. However, Qinan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He raised his eyebrows and asked, The Purple Cloud Palace is the number 1 sect in the 4 seas? Could it be that East Deity Island's Zhenyu Palace's Zhenyu Divine Lord and his wife, Zhuluo Island's Divine Nun Exenru, and Aoo Sea's deities are all dead? Prince Jiao, Li said in surprise. I've never heard of these unorthodox sects you're talking about. I'm afraid they're just some third-rate cultivators who are famous in your Central Plains. Qin Ong chuckled and said, Then you haven't heard of North Sea's Xiankong Islands, Xiankong Patriarch, Crimson Cloud Palaces, Jellyfish Jixian, Great Wildernesses, Canopy Mountains, Spiritual Empress Palaces, Qi Staff Immortal, South Sea's Copper Coconut Islands, Esteemed Tianqi, Mystic Tortoise Palaces, Izhou, Tianqian Mountains, Young Man, and West Sea's Grinding Ball Islands, Lizhu Palace. Prince Jiao, Li shook his head and said, I've heard of Xiankong Patriarch. He's a famous immortal in North Sea. I'm afraid the others don't live up to their reputations. Qin Ong shook his head and said, Then who are the mystic, door orthodox sects and diabolism masters in our Central Plains? Are there a Mei Qingcheng, Wudong Kunlun for demonic sects and West Kunlun old demons? What are those things? Prince Jiao Li sneered and said, The number 1 sect in Central Plains is obviously the Luo Fu immortal sect with tens of thousands of disciples. They're much more powerful than Mao Mountain and Mei Mountain. If you're from the Luo Fu sect, you can distinguish them based on your identity as a Luo Fu disciple. However, although the Purple Cloud Palace's disciples aren't as powerful as the Luo Fu sect, they're 10 times more powerful. I'm afraid even the Luo Fu sect master won't give them face. As for the unorthodox sects in Central Plains, there's the He Mountain sect, Pai sect, and Miaojiang witchcraft sect. They're all famous diabolism masters. They're famous throughout the 4 seas. If not for the protection of the Purple Cloud Palace in East Sea, I wouldn't even dare to say their names. Qinong sighed and said, They're indeed diabolism masters. These diabolism masters were people that Qinong could kill with just a breath. Luo Fu was just an unorthodox sect. Of course, compared to the dozen or so second-generation disciples in Amei, Luo Fu, which had tens of thousands of disciples, was indeed more like the mystic, door orthodox sects, making all the orthodox sects feel inferior. At this point, Qinong didn't dare to ask any more questions. If he continued asking, he might accidentally say something like spiritual immortal realm or pure land of ultimate bliss, and he would be scolded by this knowledgeable Prince Jiao Li for being ignorant and not knowing about the heavenly court holy land and void hometown. If he said something like Huayan and Pure Land sects, Daxiong Zen Master, and Venerable Jew from the Mahayana sects, he would be refuted with White Lotus Holy Sect and Mithria Supreme Sect. As he said this, Yangli gradually realized that he had nowhere to go. The passage of the divine sand was behind the tower where Qin'ong was. He mustered up the courage to greet Qin'ong and said, "Disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace, Wei Rong greets you, immortal." Qin'ong looked at him and smiled. "Wei Rong? You're Wei Rong, right?" This made Yang Li feel like he was about to be annihilated. He was terrified. However, Qin'ong smiled and said, "Don't panic. I know you are Yang Li, the disciple of Cui Hake Ling Shuzi. Because of Lu Rongbua, you changed your name to Wei Rong and became a servant in the Purple Cloud Palace. Lu Rongbua is your lover. When she ascended, she was trapped by Sanfeng as a baby and forced to be a slave in the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, Fong Sanfeng offended me. She and her sister were supposed to live in the Purple Cloud Palace for 30 years, but they dug their own graves and provoked me. This is what they deserve." Lu Rongbua's grandfather, Immortal Ji Lu, predicted that after 30 years, a second-generation disciple of Amei would come to save you. At that time, Fong Sanfeng will be punished, and the other two girls will not have a good ending. Qin Ang's words made Yang Li feel relieved. He kowtowed and said, "Thank you for your guidance, immortal." Qin Ang waved his hand, and an invisible true power lifted him up and said, "Slow down, slow down." This was the original fate, but Fong Sanfeng was greedy, blinded by greed, and became my enemy. Why would I let her have another 30 years? Let me ask you, do you want to be the master of the Purple Cloud Palace? Yang Li was shocked. He quickly shook his head and said, "I only want to save Rongbua. I don't dare to think about it. The Purple Cloud Palace is not my fortune. Please don't joke with me." Qin Ang nodded and said, "If you really want to, I don't dare to help you. If you offend the Purple Cloud True Lord and attract the evil guests of Amei, not only will the Purple Cloud Palace be destroyed, but you will also be taken to the mountain and become the third-generation disciple of the Mystic Door. But I can't let Fong Sanfeng have it easy. She kept you as slaves for 20 years. I want her to be your slave for 30 years. Only then can I vent my anger." Without waiting for Yang Li to say anything, Meng Qi pointed at the sword ray and wrapped him up. Chapter 445. The disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace finally regained their senses and dared to sneak into the tunnel. They shouted at Qin'ong, "Where did you come from? You are so arrogant. Do you really think that the Purple Cloud Palace has no one to back you up? You barged in without asking for forgiveness. That's fine. How dare you kill Wu Pan? Do you know how much you have sinned and how much trouble you have gotten yourself into? It's fine that you gave up your life. If you dare to cause trouble again, your soul will be suppressed by the eye of the sea for hundreds of years. In the future, you will be reincarnated as an animal." Why would Qin Ang listen to his nonsense? Although he knew that the old man was trying to lure him into the divine sand passage and use the divine sand array to ambush him, he knew that Qin'ong was very capable. Seeing that he was being noisy, he used the Milky Way's arcane power to draw out a strand of qi from his voice. He used the art of victory loathing to control his body and kill everyone around him. Then he went straight into the divine sand array. At this moment, screams could be heard in the tunnel. Yang Li, who was wrapped in Chun Ang's sword ray, heard the screams and murmured, "This is senior brother Su Fang. This is junior sister Zhao. This is Deacon Huang." Every time he said a name, his face turned paler. He was moved by the ruthlessness of this senior. Qin Ang Prince Jiao Li was still angry and sad. He said softly, "He is seeking his own death. How reckless!" Suddenly he shut his mouth in fear and did not dare to speak any more. Ling Sha was curious and asked him softly, "Why did you stop talking?" Prince Jiao Li was silent for a while and said, "The scream just now belonged to a deacon in the palace that I know. He is very respected in front of Aunt Dong Xiao and is very powerful." Ling Sha thought for a long time and remembered that the voice should be Deacon Huang that Yang Li mentioned. Before Chenong could reach him, he was already killed. Chen Ang's ability to kill a group of Purple Cloud Palace disciples in the array without even moving his hand or his sword had clearly frightened him. Chen Ang's status had also changed from an ignorant thief to a figure like the patriarch of the evil path who had invaded the Purple Cloud Palace, and a figure like a giant of the evil path. He was on the same level as the sect leader of the Mount He cult, who was famous. Prince Jiao Li knew what was good for him. Seeing this, he quickly gave up and stopped teasing the great ancestor lest he get annoyed and kill him with one slash. After manipulating that foul-mouthed person to kill all the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace who wanted to harm him in the passageway, there was no one to control the great divine sand formation. Chenong released the magic power of the Heavenly River, which stretched for 3,000 miles and froze the entire passageway of the divine sand. Finally, when Chenong raised his eyebrows, the guy he hated pulled out his sword and killed himself. At this moment, everyone in the Purple Cloud Palace was shocked. Hui Zhu and the two phoenixes were shocked. Chu Feng was cultivating in seclusion. The golden-bearded slave was nowhere to be found, and the three phoenixes and Dong Xiao went out to attack Chenong. Everyone else rushed out of their palaces. The two phoenixes shouted, "What is going on?" A disciple stepped forward to add fuel to the fire and told the story. In their story, Chenong was like a demon who coveted the Purple Cloud Palace, the Pearl Palace, and the Celestial Palace. He broke into the palace and killed them, not mentioning the fact that the three phoenixes wanted to harm him. Only Hui Zhu secretly called the most honest disciple, Long Lizi, over and found out the truth. The two phoenixes were furious. "Do you really think there is no one in the Purple Cloud Palace?" They wanted to pack up their treasures and fight with Chenong. However, Hui Zhu stopped them and said, "Put down your flying sword first. Let me go up and greet that fellow Taoist and ask about the truth." The two phoenixes respected this kind mother the most, so they could not do anything when she stopped them. She said, "Mother, they have come to fight. How can we be kind?" But seeing that Hui Zhu was persistent, she had no choice but to put away her flying sword. The 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand was created by Chu Feng using the Earth Palace golden stamp that ancestor Lianshan had hidden. She used 10,000 years old iron, coral, gold, and jade to refine the divine sand at the bottom of the sea to build the 3,000 miles long passage of divine sand. She set up countless spells and restrictions and connected it to the eye of the sea to form a great formation. With the three ladies of the Purple Cloud Palace constantly replenishing it, it was very powerful. If ordinary cultivators entered, they would be killed by the formation and the invisible divine sand, turning into ashes in an instant. But to Chenong, this divine sand formation was too crude. The 49 formation tools inside were of the unorthodox level. Although they were powerful, they did not conform to the laws of heaven and earth. They were much weaker than the yin and yang dust formation of Amei. But the materials used to refine the invisible divine sand were ordinary, and the magical techniques and restrictions were also ordinary. The invisible divine sand was very powerful to the people of the unorthodox sects, and even the juniors of the righteous path. But against someone at Cheneng's level, it would be completely restrained. Under Cheneng's feet, he could see the entire array in just a short while. It was laughable that the Purple Cloud Palace still relied on this array. But now, Chenong was sitting cross-legged on the 49 jade pillars in the array. The divine sand was rolling and eroding under his feet, but it couldn't do anything to him. The three people in the sword gleam saw it, but the other two did not know how powerful it was. Only Yang Li did not know all the key points, but he had been in the passage of the divine sand for 20 years and knew how scary this formation was. When he saw Chenong using the invisible divine sand to wash his feet, he shouted, "Could it be the real bodies of the three celestials of Amei?" Third princess heard him and said proudly, "My master is a rogue cultivator of the Central Plains. Although he is also from the orthodox mystic door, he was not born in Amei." Chun-Ong looked at the entire formation and said with a smile, Chu-Feng really thinks she's smart. This formation of hers can only block those whose mana is weaker than hers. If the mana is 10 times stronger than hers, it will not be able to stop them. Instead, it will be taken advantage of. He then said, This formation is crude, let me fix it. Xian immediately stood up and shouted, How can there be no water when there is sand? After saying that, the sword gleam behind his head did not move, but released the mana of the Milky Way that was getting stronger and stronger. It turned into a headless Milky Way and flooded the entire passage of the divine sand. Hui Zhu was about to step into the passage, but she was forced out by the Milky Way. He had been in the sea for a few months, and the mana of the Milky Way had refined a lot of Tiani water. When it was released, it was like a torrential river of water. With the wonders of the mana of the Milky Way, it meandered on the passage of the divine sand. The mighty mana flowed and eroded and gradually seeped into the key points of the divine sand formation, controlling the formation. In just a few breaths, the entire formation that Chu-Feng had painstakingly built was dismantled. Hui Zhu, Er Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded. Hui Zhu, Er Feng, Yang Li, and the others were dumbfounded and in disbelief. Although there is only the invisible divine sand, and I can't demonstrate many powerful formations, I happen to have a formation that is the true teachings of the Milky Way formation. I only need water and sand to set it up, and it is the most suitable for this situation. The Purple Cloud Palace wants to refine me, so let me set up this formation and trap her entire palace. I will slowly refine it for you to see. Chun-Ong laughed out loud. The Yellow River of 9 Bends is 10,000 miles of sand, and the waves and wind come from the ends of the world. Now, let's go straight to the Milky Way, to the house of Altair and Jinu. This was the Yellow River of 9 Bends formation. Chapter 446. As the river of magic power merged with the passage of the divine sand, it actually usurped the Purple Cloud Palace's protective formation. It turned into a surging yellow river, carrying mud and sand with it. It pierced through the eye of the sea and surrounded the Purple Cloud Palace. The foundation of the magic array that Chu-Feng had set up was cleansed by the river. It turned into a 9 Bends heavenly river. It contained countless murderous intent and was much more dangerous than the original divine sand array. Chun-Ong sat in the eye of the array and presided over the entire array. He had already placed the 3 people beside him in the array, each of them suppressing one eye of the array. The long river swallowed the endless water power in the eye of the sea. With the support of the array formation, Chun-Ang's efficiency in swallowing the seawater and refining the first sky water had increased by many times. The power of the array formation was constantly improving. At first, the 2 phoenixes could see a river that was about a mile wide. Before long, it had expanded into a boundless river. The speed at which it whittled away at the Purple Cloud Palace's restrictions also increased by several times. Presiding over the array was also a kind of exploration and cultivation for Chun-Ong. Not to mention, with the support of the array, the efficiency at which he refined the true water increased by 10 times. On one hand, the array carried the might of heaven and earth. The power of swallowing essence qi was not something that a person could compare with. On the other hand, the Purple Cloud Palace was located in the eye of the sea. It was a blessed land that swallowed endless seawater. The 9 Bends Yellow River Formation occupied the entire eye of the sea and gradually controlled the suction force of the eye of the sea, surrounding the Purple Cloud Palace even more tightly. If not for the protection of the Golden Mother restriction, it would have been broken through long ago. The group of people were suppressed under the formation. Even so, with Chun-Ong presiding over the array, it still whittled away everyone's essence qi. Large amounts of water vapor surged out from the East Sea, strengthening the power of the array formation, causing the long river to become more and more condensed and boundless. Chun-Ong then used his own transcendence energy and the array formation to temper it. Every hour, he would be able to temper a drop of heavenly true water, and the speed was still increasing. This unexpected gain made Chen Ong very satisfied. He smiled and said, "So, the Eye of the Sea actually has such benefits. No wonder the Golden Mother of Sky can collect a gourd of true water even though she doesn't cultivate the true water technique." The true water of Tianyi was the only one among the 7 types of innate water that was refined from a large amount of water vapor. It didn't have the requirement of being soft and pure like the true water of Yin, nor did it have the true water of Xianming, which had the true water of annihilation that could freeze the 3 realms. It only took the water of the 4 seas, which had the principle of being thick and vast, which could accommodate all things. In the world, only the 4 seas which were responsible for absorbing and spitting seawater, renewing the water quality, and ensuring that the 4 seas did not dry up, were the most suitable for refining. Furthermore, Chen Ong had used the formation to aid in his tempering. It was no wonder that he had improved by leaps and bounds compared to when he was in the Central Plains. When Chen Ong stepped into the formation, Prince Jiao Li was still in despair. Even he had heard of the vicious reputation of the Purple Cloud Palace's godly sand passage. When he saw Chen Ong bringing him into the formation, he even lost some of his soul and could only curse in a low voice. However, when he saw Chen Ong killing people and killing all the people in the formation, he was completely dumbfounded. He only saw Chen Ong as someone like the extraterrestrial demon or the evil sect's grand ancestor. When Chen Ong activated the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation and started to whittle down the Purple Cloud Palace, he no longer had any other thoughts. There was only one thought in his mind: peerless demon, an unparalleled evil path magnate. When Chen Ong asked him to guard the formation's eye and preside over the formation to attack the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction, he no longer showed the hopeless and desperate expression, nor did he have any respect for the Purple Cloud Palace. Instead, he worked even harder than 3rd Princess Lingsha and Yang Li, driving the formation even more ferociously. The women of the Purple Cloud Palace who were trapped in the formation were even worse off. When Er Feng heard the slanderous words, she even wanted to teach Chen Ong a lesson. She did not stop the people in the palace from taking matters into their own hands and luring Chen Ong into the godly sand formation to suppress him. In her opinion, Chen Ong was just an unorthodox individual immortal who had his own mana. He killed the palace servants, so he deserved it, even if he was refined to death by the godly sand. Even if Huizhu wanted to dissuade her, it was only because she was compassionate. She did not want to offend others because of Er Feng's mistake. When Chen Ong killed all the people in the formation, Er Feng was already furious. At the same time, she was secretly shocked. His ability to kill people through the formation was even better than hers. However, this realization only made her even more embarrassed. She thought to herself, "This person's mana is very powerful, but even so, he still dares to bully us? Big Sister's mana is 10 times stronger than his. If it wasn't for my closed-door training, I would have come out to teach this arrogant brat a long time ago." Just when Er Feng was hesitating whether to wake Chu Feng up and take down this enemy, Chen Ong launched the Yellow River of 9 Bends Formation. Under the erosion of the yellow sand, the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction was exhausted. At this moment, Er Feng no longer had the thought that her big sister was 10 times stronger than this person. She could only use her mana to control a few magic treasures to resist the erosion of the formation. Even with the protection of the Golden Mother's restriction, the Yellow River of 9 Bends Formation's remnant wave seeped in. It was like invisible sand being carried by the true water, passing through everyone's protective mana. Grains of rough divine sand wore down the Purple Cloud Palace's people's protective mana. Waves of invisible true water penetrated their bodies and melted their primordial spirits. Under the attack of the water and sand, the power of each was increased by 100 times. In just a short while, a disciple with a lower cultivation base had his mana worn out. His primordial spirit was destroyed and he died. Phone felt that her mana was being worn out by the divine sand carried by the true water. Furthermore, this kind of wearing out was directly attacking the source of her mana. It was a real waste of her years of hard work. She also felt that her primordial spirit was slowly being worn out and eroded by the true water. Seeing a disciple using up his mana and primordial spirit before him and his soul returning to the netherworld, she couldn't help but feel sad. She couldn't help but shout, "We have already surrendered. Why is that person forcing us? Is he really going to let the people of the palace die? How can he still have the face to ascend to become an immortal and achieve Tao after doing such a vicious thing?" She then shouted at Chenong, who was sitting in the celestial river, "Just because of a small argument, you killed my palace's messenger. You're still not satisfied with doing such evil deeds. Yet you came here to kill everyone in the palace. How can there be such logic in this world?" Chenong also revealed a strange smile. He pointed at Purple Cloud Palace and asked, "I don't really understand either. Purple Cloud Palace saw my disciple's beauty and wanted to kidnap her. I killed her, so it's only right for you to come here to seek revenge. Plotting against someone, so it's only natural for someone to kill you. You wanted to lure me into the formation and use me to plot against me, so I killed them all. This is all reasonable. Then why is it unreasonable for me to eliminate all of you who have tried to harm me several times in order to nip it in the bud? I don't understand. I killed your palace's messenger, the rogue immortals who helped me, and the disciples who controlled the formation. Why did you have to risk having your entire palace killed by me and provoke me? And you even said that there's no logic in this world? Could it be that the fruits of your 100 years of hard work and generations of good fortune were destroyed by me in a day? Can you still reason with me in the netherworld?" When Chenong spoke, his tone was indifferent. However, when he stopped and smiled, the dense killing intent that came from his bones made Fong Erfing, who was talking to him, feel a chill down her spine for no reason. She was extremely shocked. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, in order to not have to reason with you, I have no choice but to kill all of you until your souls are scattered, never to reincarnate." Chapter 447. The Purple Cloud Palace was hidden deep in the Earth's crust, and the bottom layer was the ancient Earth Lung Poison Fire, which was the seabed Earth Lung Fire layer of Dutian Fire. Jinmu built the palace here with the intention of suppressing it. But when Chenong wore down the prohibition in the palace, it loosened the prohibition to suppress the poison fire, which allowed Chenong to see a flaw. Chenong used the water to attack and grinded through a weak spot in the Earth's crust, drawing out a fire power. He used the formation to grind the corals, golden jade, and 10,000-year-old refined iron veins in the eye of the sea with the 9-turn yellow river formation and poured them into the fire vein. He also drew the astral wind from the surface of the sea and ignited the demonic spiritual fire. The wind blew the fire and refined it into pieces of 5-colored godly sand. Several pieces of 5-colored godly sand poured into the formation, increasing its power. Under such a 2-pronged attack, the prohibition of the Purple Cloud Palace had been broken through by Chenong to the front hall. He was still in the mood to forge many kinds of godly sand to add more methods to the 9-turn yellow river formation. At the same time, he used the Earth Lung Poison Fire to refine the flame of the eternal lamp to supplement the nature of this magic weapon. Only the people standing in the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace were in a state of panic, feeling that a disaster was coming at them every moment. At first, only the shapeless godly sand could hold on, but later, Chenong drew out the Xian-Yin poison fire and refined many kinds of godly sand, such as shape elimination, soul refining, mind confusion, bone erosion, absolute spell, impermanence, 5 elements, Xian-Yin, poison fire, and Jinmu. He also used the Tiani true water as the source to derive many kinds of true water, such as Xianming, soul scattering, spirit flowing, poison melting, silk winding, and weak water. Under the support of the 9-turn yellow river formation, how could they still hold on? The evil disciples in the palace were all dead. The ones who were left were those who usually had self-respect and were not fated to die. Their bodies were drawn by the formation, and their mana was depleted. Only their mortal bodies were left. Their bodies could not help but float out from under the memorial archway. They were swept into the long river and fainted. When they woke up again, they found themselves stranded on a deserted island nearby. Chunong had spared their lives. Yang Li manipulated a part of the formation in the formation core and trapped several of her best friends. She was eagerly looking for Lu Rongbua, but she couldn't find her for a long time. She couldn't help but beg Chinong to slow down the formation so that Lu Rongbua wouldn't be killed. Chinong shook his head and said with a smile, "You don't know karma. Ever since I became the calamity of this purple cloud palace, the heavens have responded to me. Lu Rongbua, Long Lizi, and you are not fated to die, so you each avoided this calamity. As for the 3 phoenixes of the purple cloud palace, their fates are intertwined. Each of them will have to face the tribulation. Although the golden-bearded slave and Hui Zhu are also involved, they have not committed any evil deeds. After suffering this tribulation, they will have even more benefits in the future." After saying that, he activated the formation and broke through the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace in 4 hours. When the 2 phoenixes and the rest saw the endless yellow sand falling outside the water-repelling archway in the front hall, they couldn't help but feel hopeless. They closed their eyes and waited for death, but they heard an angry voice behind them. "How dare you!" The 2 phoenixes only saw a blur before their bodies had already changed positions and escaped into the golden court of the Purple Cloud Palace, which had the strongest restriction. When they opened their eyes, they saw Chu Feng's angry face. Only then did they know that Chu Feng had taken the escape talisman to save them. However, the others couldn't save them in time, and all fell into the yellow river of 9 Bends formation. They were swept by the formation and suppressed under it. Only Hui Zhu and Long Lizi were taken into the formation core by Chinong, so they didn't lose consciousness. Although Chu Feng couldn't suppress her anger, she still forced herself to be clear-headed. She called the 2 phoenixes to her side and asked about the cause and effect. When she sensed that the restriction in the palace was broken, she came out of seclusion in shock. The 3 ladies grew up in the Purple Cloud Palace, so they believed in the restriction in the palace more than their own mana. There had never been an enemy who could break through the restriction. The 3 ladies obtained the legacy of the Purple Cloud Palace and bought a huge family business. They could be considered as the top sect in the EC. Usually, there were countless rules for their disciples to visit them, and they wouldn't allow anyone to humiliate them. Of course, they only restricted outsiders and used all kinds of rules to show how big their sect was. They wanted others to give in and show respect, but they didn't restrict their disciples. It was probably a form of being high and mighty, like an emperor in the secular world, belittling other people's character in order to highlight his own prestige. This was fine normally, but when it came to people like Chenong who didn't like the rules but had the bigger fist, even if he pretended to be an idiot, he would still be humiliated. They dared to do this because of 3 reasons. First, the 3 ladies had the mana of the rogue immortals. Although it was only an unorthodox skill, in this vast land outside the sea, even people like Ancestor Xiankong and the young man of Mount Tianqian had to give them some face. Second, the restriction left by the Golden Mother of the Purple Cloud Palace was closed, thinking that no one could break through it. Third, it was the 3,000 miles of divine sand passage. Chu Feng used magic as a sacrifice, so she was confident that no one would be able to return. The 3 ladies were short-sighted and had never seen a second-generation disciple of a Mei who had the rare treasure of Heaven Mansion. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such thoughts. The Amei disciples were supposed to teach them a lesson after 30 years. This time, the 3 phoenixes got into trouble. Before the tribulation 30 years later, they provoked someone like Chunong, who used his unparalleled power, divine sand cultivation, and restriction to crush all the trump cards that the 3 ladies were so proud of. He taught them how big of a mistake they had made. After listening to the two phoenixes' explanation, even though Chu Feng controlled her mana, she couldn't help but frown. She said softly, "This person's mana is probably at the level of a heavenly immortal. He isn't weaker than the Golden Mother who left behind the Purple Cloud Palace. Also, he doesn't talk reason with us. If the three phoenixes were slightly weaker, he might really send the entire palace into reincarnation." After saying that, she started calculating. After a while, she heaved a sigh of relief. Our fate is not over yet, so we still have 30 years to rest. This time, it should be more daunting than dangerous. Let me use the divine shark sting to resist him and see if I can use words to ease the tension. Without the three phoenixes, we might be able to get him to help us. Chun Ong stood under the waterproof archway in the front hall of the Purple Cloud Palace. He admired the #1 celestial abode of the Eastern Sea, the Pearl Palace that had been at the bottom of the sea for 10,000 years. The palace was a few hundred miles deep and had a total of 63 floors. There were pearl palaces everywhere, golden halls, jade steps, jade forests, and exotic plants. There were countless treasures hidden here, other than the jade nectar, banana coral paste, jade cherry purple marrow. The rest were rare food from the deep sea and elixirs that were more than 1,000 years old. Ordinary people could live forever after consuming it. In the backyard of the Purple Cloud Palace, there were countless corals, pearl shells, and seaweed. There were also countless celestial herbs and elixirs. Most of them could not be found in the mortal world. Although Chanong had only broken through the front hall, the treasures that he had reached took up a small half of the Purple Cloud Palace. Chin Ong did not hold back and started to collect them without hesitation. Because he was afraid of damaging this magnificent scenery, he even slowed down the attack of the Yellow River of Nine Rivers Formation. He could not use many of his destructive methods. Chinong smiled. Coincidentally, I want to open a celestial abode in the eye of the Southern Sea. The Purple Cloud Palace probably has gathered 80% of the elixirs in the sea. This saves me a lot of hard work. He made up his mind. He did not want the Purple Cloud Palace, and he did not care about the treasures in the palace. He just wanted to take a portion of these elixirs with him and transplant them when he opened another celestial abode. Chu Feng did not know that he had already treated these elixirs that were more than 1,000 years old as his own. While the attack of the Yellow River of Nine Rivers Formation had slowed down, Chu Feng managed to protect herself and arrived at the front hall where Chinong was. Chapter 448. Chu Feng stepped into the front hall and placed half of her body in the Yellow River of Nine Bends Formation. It was only because of the Purple Cloud Palace's formation that she wasn't completely dragged into the formation and suppressed. This was also why she was confident in facing Chinong otherwise. She would never dare to face a strong enemy like Chinong alone. She used the escape talisman to protect herself and carefully walked to the front hall. She saw a young man stepping on an undulating river of yellow sand. There were 12 watercolored spirit lights hanging behind his head. He had a temperament that didn't match his age. His eyebrows were like swords and his eyes were like stars. His bottomless eyes brought Chu Feng a rare sense of pressure. When she looked at the young man's bone structure, even Chu Feng couldn't help but exclaim, "What a beautiful bone structure!" He was born with extraordinary talent. Although the young man's spells and treasures were extraordinary, Chu Feng could still see that he hadn't become an itinerant immortal. Although an orthodox Xuanmin's Jiaxuo's cultivation was at the peak of the cultivation of qi, it was like cutting melons and vegetables in front of a rogue immortal from an unorthodox sect. However, cultivation was the foundation after all. Chu Feng felt that this person was probably not the great medium who set up the formation to trap the Purple Cloud Palace. It was most likely his disciple or relative who was controlling the formation on his behalf. As soon as she thought of this, she felt a little strange. She was asked to submit to someone and let herself be trampled upon. It really put this proud and arrogant Grand Palace Master, who had gradually become delicate over the years, in a difficult position. On the other hand, She thought that if she captured this person and held him hostage, she might be able to force his master to give in and make an oath not to make things difficult for the Purple Cloud Palace. Chu Feng had been taught by the three phoenixes over the years, so her temperament wasn't as pure as before. She was more scheming, and the way she did things was a little extreme. Therefore, when this thought appeared, not only did she not reflect on it, it was like a demon in her heart was becoming more and more shaken. She thought, this young man is so talented, has many treasures, and was given the important task of controlling the formation by that person. He must be very favored by that person and is a trusted disciple. Now that they have come to invade the Purple Cloud Palace, it's difficult to fight them. This is a rare opportunity. If I can capture him, I can force that person to stop and make him apologize to us. I'll explain to him and resolve the karma between him and the three phoenixes, and this tribulation will be over. Once this thought sprouted, it grew wildly like weeds until she could no longer hold it in and shouted, "Which sect are you from? How dare you offend my Purple Cloud Palace? Is this a place you can come and go as you please? You attacked the immortal mansion, ruined the scenery in my palace, and killed my disciples, so you can stay here. I would like to ask your master, what is the crime of allowing his disciple to commit murder?" When Chunong saw a woman with a cold temperament suddenly appear in front of him and say these words, he just smiled slightly and was about to suppress her. He didn't care what she asked, and two sword lights separated from the back of his head one after another. The sword light in front was vigorous like angry thunder, and the sword light in back was only attached to the shadow of the sword light in front. It was silent, and there was only a trace of water that was hard to see, soft and long. This kind of sword art, intertwined with strong power and softness, was the way of yin and yang. How could Chu Feng expect this? She only had time to use many magic treasures to defend herself. At the same time, she hurriedly turned her flying sword and divine shark sting to block, but they were all cut by the fierce sword light in front. Most of the magic treasures left by Jinmu were damaged, and she couldn't defend against the sword light in the dark. Had it not been for the first phoenix's invisible demonic barrier that had automatically activated to protect its master, and its innumerable strands of invisible silk had entangled the waterscape sword, Chinang's sword would have pierced through its scapula and suppressed it with a backhand formation. Even if she was lucky enough to escape this calamity, Chinang's heart wouldn't waver in the slightest. This was because this sword strike had allowed Chunong to see through her, which meant that it would only be a matter of 10 sword strikes. It wouldn't be able to cause any waves. Chunong raised his eyelids and glanced at her. Another sword light appeared behind his head, and the waterscape sword that was like flowing water became like golden threads. It divided into countless small sword threads and passed through the thousands of soft threads formed by the invisible devil barrier. Chu Feng didn't know that she had met a real lord, so she hurriedly shouted, "Senior, please hold back. I have something to say." However, Chunong only pretended that he did not hear anything. 2 sword beams forced Chu Feng back, and finally, millions of sword threads pierced through the top of her head, sealing and restraining her primordial spirit. The formation under his feet moved, and she was suppressed in the eye of the formation, together with Hui Zhu and Long Lizi. At this moment, Yang Li, who was in charge of the center of the formation, saw this scene and could only smile bitterly. She mumbled, "This is the great palace master of our palace. She seems to be here to ask for peace with Senior?" Chin-Ong stood at the side and continued to pretend not to hear her, until Yang Li begged again and again. He then said indifferently, "Why should I beg for something that I can get with my own ability?" Yang Li was stunned when he heard this. He had a deeper understanding of the senior's character, but he still remembered the benefits of Chu Feng, so he pleaded, "Senior is so mighty, how can the people in Purple Cloud Palace not know what's good for them? They have already been defeated to this extent, so how can they still be reserved? Senior doesn't need to beg, no matter what you fancy, as long as you give a sign. They will definitely give it to you." Chun-Ong raised his eyelids and sneered. Do you think I'm talking about spiritual medicine and treasures? Is it something from Purple Cloud Palace? Yan Li couldn't help but ask in surprise. Then could it be? I'm talking about peace. Chun-Ong said calmly. Why should I talk to her? If I want something, I can just get it myself. After today, Purple Cloud Palace will be in my hands, and their lives will be in my hands. Why should I bother to talk to her? Does she deserve it? Yan Li was a little unhappy when he heard this, so he plucked up his courage and said, Senior, are you afraid that you will lose face by using force? Do you think I will bully the weak and occupy the Purple Cloud Palace immortal residence? Chun-Ong asked with a smile. He saw that Yan Li's expression was ugly, but he didn't dare to refute him, so he shook his head and sighed. It's my business to be impartial. Whether I handle things fairly or not is up to me. What does it have to do with them? Whether I handle things fairly or not is up to me. How can I let them speak? If she wants to talk to me, she will have to scheme and scheme against me. If she sees that I am soft-hearted, she will bully me and accuse me of a crime. Then she will ask the seniors to uphold justice and reduce her own punishment. Instead, she will convict me of attacking the palace gate without permission. Then they will end up with a punishment of 3 cups of wine. If she sees that I am tough, she will dawdle and pretend to be pitiful. In the middle, there will be Sanfeng and Dongxiu who might not be convinced and pester me in every way possible. If it was someone with the same ability as me, I wouldn't lack this bit of effort to settle disputes with him. But the 3 women of the Purple Cloud Palace are just itinerant immortals. Are they worthy of me spending so much effort on them? I might as well just crush them. Whether they are good or bad, I will handle them. Isn't that simple and easy? Chun-Ong looked at his expression and nodded with a smile. That's right. The decision and punishment of this matter will be handled by me. Chapter 449. After saying this, Chun-Ong ignored her. Seeing that Yan Li still wanted to say something, he became impatient, not to mention the 3 phoenixes of the Purple Cloud Palace. Do you think you, Yan Li, have a lot of respect in front of me? I'm not your master or grandmaster. I don't have so much time to comfort you. It's not your turn to restrain me. He then shouted, I see that you have a lot of free time. I'm busy polishing the Purple Cloud Palace's restrictions here. Over at Yingzhen Island, Sanfeng and Dongxiu are about to arrive, and there are also exquisite people like Su Feinyang waiting for them. Take this banner over and ask them. If they agree, wave this banner. The formation will naturally change. As he said this, a yellow flag with 2 lapels rose from the long river under his feet and flew into Yan Li's arms. Yan Li had no choice but to leave. He stood on the flag and looked at the passage of divine sand that had turned into a yellow river, wondering how to cross it. Unexpectedly, as soon as he thought of this, the flag in his hand responded, and a wave rose from the long river under his feet, carrying him to Yingzhen Island. The 3 phoenixes waited for Chun-Ong for a long time, but he did not come. When they received a message from their disciple, saying that the enemy had reached the door, they hurriedly rushed to Purple Cloud Palace with Dongxiu and Su Feinyang. Unexpectedly, as soon as they got off the conveyance light, someone on the island asked, Are you the 3 phoenixes and 3 palace masters? Looking straight ahead, they saw Yan Li standing on the veranda used to welcome fellow celestials and asking her. The 3 phoenixes always disliked Wei Rong, who was always alone and only had peace with Long Lizi and Lu Rongbua. Seeing that he was not friendly and that everything was not going well today, they were a little annoyed by his question and said coldly, It's you? Why are you the only one on the island? Where's Wu Pan? And Toddler Crutch Duda? Peach Blossom Nun and other Taoists? Yan Li said calmly. A senior Chin came and said that the 3 palace masters found trouble with him and wanted to plot against him. Wu Pan was not pleasing to the eye, so he killed him. The 3 phoenixes were furious and shouted, How dare he do this? I haven't punished him for killing my messenger, and he came to kill me again. How could second sister tolerate it? even if Ergia is able to endure it. Lai Guai Tucho is a capable, loose, immortal expert. He has always dared to stand up for me, and he is loyal to his friends. A few days ago, he even shared the same hatred with me. Why didn't he make a move? Yan Li sighed and said, Toddler Monk did make a move, but he was no match for his opponent. He was cut into two at the waist by that senior. The three phoenixes were so angry that their eyes almost popped out. They gritted their teeth and said, How dare you? With the peach blossom divine Nun Li Yuyu and the help of many fellow Taoists, even if the head monk couldn't defeat them, how could he lose his life? Yan Li sighed and said, The celestial nun of peach blossom, Li Yuyu, was also severed by the flying dagger divine net and killed with a single sword strike. He did not wait for the three phoenixes to question him further, and continued, And Lang Shaoxian, all the rogue immortals on this island, except for Ling Wei, who begged for his life, were all killed. Senior brother Su, junior sister Zhao, Deacon Huang, and the others tried to lure him into the formation to frame them, but they were also killed. When the three phoenixes heard the first part of a sentence, they were still in the mood to be angry, but when they heard the latter part, they were simply stunned. Other than shock, there was also suspicion. They murmured, How? How could there be such a person? When they saw Yang Li's calm expression, they turned hostile and scolded. Nonsense! They are all dead. Why are you still alive? Only Dong Xiao, who was slightly interested in Yan Li and was cunning and calm, saw Li Yuyu's broken flying dagger and the remains of the divine net. She pointed it out to the three phoenixes and said, I'm afraid what Wei Rong said is right. This time, we have attracted an extraordinary killer. Su Feinyang was also very shocked. She thought to herself, what a ruthless person, and what a vicious sword art. There are many prohibitions on this welcoming immortals island, and they have the right location and the great divine sand formation behind them. But he still managed to kill so many people. If it wasn't for the Purple Cloud Palace, I'm afraid the three Phoenix's sisters wouldn't even need to think about revenge. It wouldn't be difficult for them to have their entire families killed. Such a killer that appears once in 1,000 years, I must never offend him. In the future, if I plan to provoke the people of a Mei sect into provoking him, I wonder how much help he can provide me. But I must not offend the three Phoenixes either. After all, as long as the Purple Cloud Palace is here, no one can do anything to them. I must think of a way to befriend both of them at the same time. Seeing that Su Feinyang did not speak for a long time, Yan Li helplessly asked, Is that goddess Wan Miao? Su Feinyang smiled and said, What's the matter, Marshal Niece Wei? Yan Li heaved a sigh of relief and answered, My real name is Yan Li. Wei Rong is just a fake name. Junior Marshal sister Lu Rongbua was harmed by scoundrels and was imprisoned in the Purple Cloud Palace as a slave. That's why I used a fake name to sneak in here, hoping to help her escape. Therefore, I'm not a disciple of the Purple Cloud Palace. This time, Senior Chin sent me to capture you. I'll explain the cause and effect here, so that when you resent me in the future, you'll have a clear reason. After saying that, without waiting for the three ladies to turn hostile, he raised the banner in his hand and waved it thrice. Behind him, the yellow river of 9 bends formation of the Godsend passageway suddenly expanded, unleashing an invisible suction force that pulled the 3 women into it. The power of the formation had stacked up to a terrifying level. Under the constant grinding of the true water Godsend, even heaven immortals would have their energy drained and suppressed if they were not fully prepared. How could the 3 phoenixes and the others be prepared? Before Dong Xiao could even struggle, her flesh body was ground away, and a strand of her soul was reincarnated. The arcane energy of the 3 phoenixes and Su Feinyang was also depleted and suppressed in the eye of the formation. Then they were moved to the other side by Chinong. At this moment, other than the golden court jade pillar in the center of the Purple Cloud Palace, the rest was controlled by the 9 bends yellow river formation. In less than 2 days, even the golden court jade pillar was breached, and the two phoenixes were suppressed in the formation, accompanied by their two sisters. The entire Purple Cloud Palace fell into the hands of Chenong. Only the golden-bearded slave escaped to somewhere unknown, which made Yang Li restless and worried about the whereabouts of Lu Rongbua, who had left with him. Chenong did not care where he went, only thinking that there were still repercussions from the disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace. He did not even tidy up the things in the palace, only locking the three phoenixes, Huizhu, Long Lizi, and the others in a side hall, while he went to practice the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation. Before practicing the formation in the Eye of the Sea, Chenong did not have such an idea, but after controlling the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation to control the Eye of the East Sea for a few days, he had endless inspiration and comprehended many mysteries from it. He verified them one by one, whether it was the water eye of the East Sea, the mysteries of the water veins and ocean currents, or the ideas of turning the world into a world within the formation space. To him, this was more worthy of attention than the Purple Cloud Palace or the hidden treasures of the spirit medicine. Thus, he wholeheartedly evolved, experimented, verified, and comprehended these ideas and principles, perfecting the array formation that he had created on a whim. Other than borrowing the treasures of the Purple Cloud Palace, he also verified the structure of the formation that he had deduced. When he referred to the space studies of other universes, he opened up a cave in the formation and even combined the wonders of the Eye of the Sea with the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, roughly refining the Purple Cloud Palace, the Eye of the Sea, the Earth's crust, and the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation. This made the inhibition of the Purple Cloud Palace even more terrifying. Within the range of the Eye of the Sea, Chenong could trap anyone into the cave opened up by the formation with just a thought. With the gang evil chi, the divine sand, and the real water, the 5 chi in the chest, and the 3 flowers on top of the head would be obliterated. At this time, a formation that was not inferior to the Amei mountain protecting formation, the Yin and Yang dust formation, had its embryonic form. Under the improvement of Chenong, the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation would be qualified to compete with the Yin and Yang dust formation in the future. Chapter 450. The Great Formation had been operating for a month. As it was gradually being worn in, the space of the formation in the Eye of the Sea of Purple Cloud Palace was becoming more and more perfect. Many rough and unbearable places had been polished off. Seeing that Chenong had no intention of taking action and was still imprisoning the people of the Purple Cloud Palace, and Lu Rongbua's whereabouts were unknown, Yang Li gradually became anxious. She could not help but go to the Golden Court where Chenong was and kowtow to ask about it. Chenong pitied his infatuation and summoned him in, saying, "I know you have doubts. That day when I attacked the Purple Cloud Palace's restriction, I alarmed the golden-bearded slave. Lu Rongbua went to call him and was taken away by him to seek help from a senior in the Central Plains. I was also happy to see this, so I released the formation and let him escape." Yang Li was relieved, but she was still puzzled. "Senior, since you've already captured the 3 girls, why did you only let me eat and drink these few days? Why didn't you punish me?" Chenong smiled faintly and said, "The main character is here. How should we deal with him?" He also said to him, "Go and lift the jade pillar of the Golden Court." Yang Li panicked and said, "The Golden Court jade pillar is the pivot of the Purple Cloud Palace's formation prohibition. Before the prohibition is opened, it weighs millions of tons. My mana is weak. How can I open it?" What he said was the truth, but he did not know that Chenong had already refined all the restrictive spells of the Purple Cloud Palace with the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation. He had also added and modified many of the restrictive spells that he had comprehended himself. Even Tianyi-jin's mother might not be as familiar with the Purple Cloud Palace as Chenong was. Mastering the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation was equivalent to refining the entire Purple Cloud Palace. Activating any restrictive spell would only require a thought from Chenong. If it were not for the clear ownership of the Purple Cloud Palace and the fact that it involved Tianyi-jin's mother and Longbrow Immortal, the two powerful cultivators of the righteous path. Chenong would not want to offend them for such a small thing. Even if Tian Yijin's mother came to ask for it, Chenong could use the Yellow River of 9 Rivers formation to keep her out of the palace. What more a mere golden court, jade pillars, restrictive spell. The restrictive spell that was suppressing the golden court was adjusted and redesigned by Chenong. Yang Li begged several times, but Chenong ignored him. He had no choice but to use his escape technique and fly towards those jade pillars. The jade pillars between them were thick and translucent, bright like crystals. They were magnificent and dignified, beautiful beyond compare. When he got close, each of them shone brightly, illuminating the entire golden court. Yan Li then realized that Chenong already had a plan, so she walked closer to him. He grabbed the bottom of the pillar with both hands and lifted it up, shouting, "Quick!" That main pillar slowly rose and gradually lifted about 3 feet off the ground. A deep hole appeared at the base of the pillar. Inside the hole was dense with colorful energy, and a strange fragrance wafted into the nose. Before Yang Li could take a closer look, a golden light flew out from the cave and landed at his feet. It was an invitation and a heavenly book. Yang Li still wanted to take a closer look, but he felt that the jade pillar in his arms was pulled by a strong force. Before he could find a direction, it closed the cave on its own. Yan Li knew that it was Chenong who was controlling it, so he picked up the 2 documents at his feet and went back to report to Chenong. Chenong took over the 2 documents and first flipped through the heavenly book. He only sneered at the end and took out the invitation to read it. After reading it, he only sneered as well. He brought Yang Li closer to him and showed him the invitation. The invitation recorded an old incident that happened 1,000 years ago. The owner of the invitation was a wandering celestial from a different sect 1,000 years ago. He was also the former master of the Purple Cloud Palace. When he attained Tao, he was greatly indebted to Changmei. He originally gifted the DK golden stamp to Changmei, but this person still sealed the letter within the golden court jade pillar and left behind an invitation to record this incident. Yang Li only understood after reading this, and said, "So there's such a karma in the palace." Chenong smiled. "Don't be in a hurry. Read this one." He then sealed the front of the heavenly book, revealing only the last page to him. The owner of this heavenly book was even before Mother Earth. It was Mother Tian Yi who predicted the future events. She recorded the karma of the Purple Cloud Palace, the tribulations of the 3 women, the relationship between Amei and the mortal manor, and the outcome of the 3 women. The prophecy of the 3 women's fates was messed up due to the appearance of an anomaly. Chenong sealed it and forbade Yang Li from reading it. He didn't want to embarrass Mother Tian Yijin and offend this expert. He only revealed the record of Mother Tian Yijin entrusting the immortal manor to Amei. After he finished reading, Chenong smiled. "Now, do you know why I didn't punish them? The master of the immortal manor, Amei, didn't send anyone here. If I punished them rashly, I would have sowed karma." The 3 women of the Purple Cloud Palace naturally didn't have the right to discuss the ownership of the immortal manor with Chenong or even their own fates. However, Amei definitely had the right to do so. It was because Long Brow Spiritual Master was still in the upper bound. The karma net that Amei had woven encompassed most of the important plots of Mount Shu. It was also the best helper for Chenong to find the space of the Master God. If he didn't clarify the karma of the Purple Cloud Palace with Amei, it would disrupt the plans of Amei in the future. Wouldn't he be helping the space of the Master God cover up the traces of its plan? Chen Ang's Dharma name wasn't Venerable Lei Feng, so he naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Therefore, to clarify the karma with Amei, not only should it not be vague, it should be clear. It would also be beneficial for him to build a reasonable identity in the karma net. Only then did Yang Li admire Chen Ang's clear-cut way of doing things. Even the domineering impression of him imprisoning the 3 women had weakened a little. Although Chenong had a bad temper, he was not an unreasonable person. Although he didn't give the three women of the Purple Cloud Palace a chance to admit defeat, he still dealt with them fairly and had his own considerations. 2 days later, Chenong was controlling the formation of the Yellow River of 9 Bends, collecting the massive amount of seawater from the eye of the sea to quench the Tiani true water. He also used the Holy Sand Bunch to attack the earth veins and excavate the 10,000-year-old cold iron essence from the bottom of the sea. Suddenly, he felt that there were conveyance lights coming towards the Yingzhan Island from the direction of the Central Plains in the distance. Among the 4 breaths he sensed, there happened to be Golden Bearded Slave and Lu Rongbua. The other 2 conveyance lights were the mana of the Orthodox sect of the Mystic Door. Even if Chenong didn't know them, he could guess that the only Orthodox sect of the Mystic Door that Golden Bearded Slave had some connections with were the 2 elders of Mount Song. They had a close relationship with Amei, and they also had some fate with the people of the Purple Cloud Palace, so it was appropriate for them to come with Chenong. On the other hand, the people of Amei's sect were in an awkward situation because the letters left behind by Mother Gold and Mother Earth hadn't appeared in the world. Seeing that the 4 conveyance lights were about to land on the island, Chenong called Yang Li over and said, "Golden Bearded Slave has invited the 2 elders of Mount Song to persuade me. Go to the door to welcome them." After he said that, he controlled the Yellow River of 9 Bends to open up a path. After a while, Yang Li brought the 4 of them to the door of the Golden Court, excitedly. He reported to Chenong and retreated to talk to Lu Rongbua. Chapter 451. The 2 elders of Mount Song were friends with the 3 phoenixes and the Golden Bearded Slave of the Purple Cloud Palace in the early years. Many magic treasures they used were obtained from the treasure house of Master Lianshan on the Moon, an island under the protection of the 2 elders. The 2 elders of WW still cared about their old friendship. If Chu Feng and the others were not obsessed with the supplement of the Tomes of Arcane, 3 ginseng of Mystic taken out from the treasure house and killed a lot of people to refine the mother and child wishful sand and the shapeless sand, the 2 elders might not let them face the tribulation. Even so, the 3 phoenixes and the Golden Bearded Slave were destined to be apprenticed to the Qingqing sect in the future. The Purple Cloud Palace had suffered a great change. The change caused by Chenong was obviously out of the Long-Brow Immortal's plan before he ascended. But fortunately, the heavens will showed that there was still room for change. It just so happened that Jinxu Nu came with Lu Rongbua to ask for help. Qi Shuming, the leader of a Mei sect, asked the 2 elders to come and test Cheneng's attitude. However, when the 2 elders of Mount Song landed on the immortal welcoming island, Yang Li came to greet them and opened the life gate of the 9-turn Yellow River formation. They saw a slight change in the formation. They were shocked and thought to themselves, "This formation is not simple. Although it hasn't been unfolded, we can feel a trace of the same atmosphere as the Yin and Yang dust formation when we enter through the life gate." Because of the lack of maturity, the formation is far from mature, and it is not as powerful as the magical sense of life and death are like bubbles and shadows. 2 worlds are like dust when the Yin and Yang dust formation is fully opened. However, I am afraid that the power of the formation is not inferior to that of the Yin and Yang dust formation. The Purple Cloud Palace has been refined like an iron bucket by that fellow Taoist. If he is in trouble, we may not be able to resist him. Fortunately, they did not see any hostility in the formation. Silently using the heaven's design, it was also a good sign. They immediately put aside their concerns and stepped into the formation with Yang Li. Without any trouble, they saw Chenong in the Golden Court. Chenong did not have any hostility towards the 2 of them. In his calculations, Mount Amei was a big obstacle for him. In the future, the Master God space would definitely mix in with the Devil Dao and evil spirits. He would need Mount Amei's help to eradicate those evil spirits who wished for the world to be in chaos and seize the Master God's weakness. At that time, Chenong would also have to put on the airs of a master of the righteous path and bully the heretical sects together with a Mei sect. He would allow the second generation of the sect to commit crimes and raise a large group of celestial descendants to specifically oppose the heretical sects of the demonic path. Other transmigrators would have to support the heretical sects to fight against a Mei sect, but Chenong would specifically oppose the transmigrators. He would even plot against the greatest mastermind behind the transmigrators and help a Mei sect find their common enemy. He stopped the Golden Court's restriction and personally went out to welcome the 2 elders of Mount Song. He cupped his hands and said, "Chin Ong greets the 2 Tao friends of Mount Song. Sorry for troubling the 2 Tao friends to come from afar. I already know why you are here. The disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace was caused by the arrogance of the 3 phoenixes. The first and second phoenixes let the disciples of the palace do evil and made friends with the heresy sections. Although I have occupied this immortal's mansion, I do not have any fate with it. I still need to discuss it with the master of the immortal's mansion." Oh, the 2 elders of Song Mountain did not have any expression on their faces, but they were quite shocked. Chunong was so easy to talk to, which was far beyond their expectation. He also knew many secrets of the Purple Cloud Palace Immortal's Mansion, not to mention his ability to calculate the heaven's design. Just his knowledge was very impressive. The 3 ladies of the Purple Cloud Palace had lived in this palace for more than 400 years. Didn't they still not know who the master of the Immortal's Mansion was? Zhu Mei came back to her senses and smiled calmly. "We still have to rely on Chen Daoyou's righteousness. We are clear about this matter. It was the 3 phoenixes who acted rashly and offended you, which caused the disaster of the Purple Cloud Palace to be brought forward by 80 years. We came here to be impartial and not to make things difficult for you. One side was willing to fight, and the other side was willing to suffer. They were in cahoots with each other. Their conversation was agreeable, and they soon had a good chat. It seemed like they were in love with each other. The golden-bearded slave saw them flirting with each other. In the blink of an eye, they sold out the Purple Cloud Palace. They had the imperialistic style of dividing up the Purple Cloud Palace, and they were the victims of the appeasement policy of the 2 big countries that had entered the honeymoon period. This meeting could be called the Paris Peace Conference of the Ming Dynasty or the Cairo Conference of the Cultivation World. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel sad. He slammed the table and shouted, "Seniors, why are you forcing me? I invited the 2 seniors of Mount Song to seek justice for my Purple Cloud Palace. So why are you splitting up the treasures of the palace with the enemy of my Purple Cloud Palace? Even though I, the golden-bearded slave, have weak magic power, I am loyal. If you guys are forcing me like this, so what if my soul is destroyed?" Chin-Ong and the 2 elders of Mount Song looked at him calmly, and Chan-Ong went straight to the point. "Golden-bearded slave, I know you aren't convinced, but do you know that this Purple Cloud Palace has a previous owner? It's the old residence of Mother Tian-Yi, Great Master Lian Shan. It's where an itinerant immortal Mother Earth avoided the calamity 1,000 years ago. The 3 women of Purple Cloud Palace were the maids of Mother Earth in their previous lives, and you were also an attendant of the palace in your previous life. That's why you have this 500 years of fate. 500 years later, there will be disciples of Mother Earth, the old masters of Purple Cloud Palace, Qi Lingyun, and Zi Ling, who will come to take over the immortal abode. Also, the cause and effect of Mount Amei's long-brow spiritual master being entrusted by Mother Earth and Mother Gold to take over Purple Cloud Palace is recorded in the books left behind by the predecessors. When he finished, he showed him the heavenly book and the invitation. Golden-bearded slave was speechless. Chun-Ong then moved the 3 women of Purple Cloud Palace, Huizhu, Longlizi, and the rest into the Golden Court. He showed them the heavenly book and the invitation and told them the reason. The 3 phoenixes offended me, so I only needed to deal with them myself. Even if I killed all 3 of you, others could only say that I'm overbearing and a killer. But aren't all the itinerant immortals and unorthodox sects from overseas like this? Zhan Hai wanted to kill you guys and snatch Purple Cloud Palace, so he was killed by you guys. On the other hand, the 3 phoenixes wanted to kill and harm me. So even if I got rid of your entire palace, others wouldn't be able to say anything. However, I took into account that you guys still had a sliver of conscience, other than the mother and child Rui divine sand that harmed the lives of many living beings. I wasn't willing to kill you guys. However, Purple Cloud Palace had another karma that implicated the 2 experts of Mauname to run around and pray for your lives. I originally wanted to send the 3 phoenixes to reincarnation, but with Senior Zhu and Mei persuading you guys, I let you guys off this time. The Divine Sand Passage has already been destroyed by me, and the 500 years of fate between you guys and Purple Cloud Palace has been shortened by 50 years because of refining the Divine Sand, and 30 years because you offended me. It's already over, so what do you guys want? Are you still going to occupy the immortal abode and tangle with Purple Cloud True Lord Amei, then wait for a chance to take revenge on me? Or are you going to listen to Amei's persuasion and let go of this karma? When Qin Ong finished speaking, he sneered. Let me say this first. If you guys annoy me again, I'm afraid I won't be so nice the next time.